Hey, everyone.
Yeah, we're live, it looks like. Eric, I thought you were... Hi, everyone. Well, we're going to give it a second for people to join in.
All right. I'm on.
Yeah, there you go.
I was on Wi-Fi for a second there, so I had to click back off. But we got to jump on early, guys. The schedule's being leaked all over the internet. It's getting exciting right now. So, to say the least, BirdGang Travel Online, myself, Tyler. We got Blake on as well with us again, and John Skelton. So welcome to the broadcast. Hopefully you guys are off work and can jump on and give it a listen. But I know this thing's about to drop here any minute, and we'll know everything pretty soon. So, Tyler, what have you seen so far?
The whole thing's out. I mean, and we'll go through it all here in a minute, but the whole schedule has just been released. Real quick, yes, introduce everyone. Blake, tell everybody where you're from.
Hey there, yeah. Part of the Revenge of the Birds writing staff, the Recipe Nation, and the ROTB Pod podcast. It's been good to be back with you guys after the draft this year.
Sounds good. Sounds great. John, no introduction needed, but go ahead.
No, I'll introduce myself. I think it's been long enough since my last game where people will stop cursing my name, but John Skelton, former Cardinals quarterback, huge fan of BirdGang Travel, everything you guys do. Blake, happy to be on with you. I think what you guys do over at Revenge of the Birds is great too. So let's take a look at this schedule, man.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, let's get right into it. But actually, before we get right into it, Eric, let's go off to our commercial and show what a BirdGang travel trip is like, because that's going to get us right into week one and talking about the first game on the schedule. So can you cue up that promo clip of one of our last trips?
Yeah, certainly. Let's hit it. Yeah, so that was the weekend my liver died.
Yeah, no more liver after New Orleans. So let's get right into it. That was the last time we were on the road, and we're going to be back on the road this year. Starting in week 1, this was the trip of the year. We had a fan survey, and over 270 fans voted that the place they wanted to go is where Arizona will kick it off on the road in Nashville, heading to go see the Derrick Henry Express and crew. We'll be hanging out in Nashville. We've actually all day have been on the phones because this broke, I want to say around 6:30 in the morning that the week 1 games came out. So we've been on the phone with hotels. We've been on the phone with our tailgate setup. It is going to be quite the trip to Nashville. But with that said, it's a tough team in Nashville, and I'm going to kick it over to you, Blake, to get things started. What do you think about that week 1 matchup with the Derrick Henry-led Tennessee Titans?
Oh man, anytime that you get a week 1 playoff team, it's a rough start to the year, not to mention on the road. I think it's going to come down to, can Arizona's defense, after losing some of their starting corners and adding, some toughness up front with Zaven Collins, JJ Watt, who's familiar with the Titans, are they going to be able to put up enough of an effort in stopping Derrick Henry and kind of making Ryan Tannehill feel uncomfortable to be able to take advantage of a secondary that's depleted? I think a lot of it comes down to that A.J. Brown-Malcolm Butler matched up in camp last year. Will be interesting to see if this turns into an offensive battle or if it's going to be one of those defensive struggles back and forth, because that Titans front is pretty dominating as of last year too.
No, 100%. And you really hit on it. The Malcolm Butler, A.J. Brown matchup, that was one today that they said week 1 cornerback wide receiver matchups, and that was one that was circled for the weekend. So it'll be an interesting matchup for sure. John, what do you think about the Tennessee Titans this year?
I think Blake kind of beat around the bush there. I think it's going to be a slugfest. They're going to give the ball to Henry 25 times. They're going to test that defense early. I think a lot of it's going to be determined on possession, and if the Cardinals can maintain the clock, get a running game going. But right out of the gate, it's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be a great test for the Cardinals, I think. Yeah,
no, for sure. Notable re-signings and additions to the Titans this year: Bud Dupree, Janoris Jenkins, Denico Autry, and Josh Reynolds. Their first-round draft pick, a corner, and Caleb Farley. That'll be week 1, and we will be in Nashville for that game. It will be the biggest trip of the year. Package details.
Do we want to tease a little on the package, Tyler? I think we're hearing a little rooftop party, possible boat party, since it'll be early in the season. We're working out the details on that, and also a possible maybe 1 or 2 Nashville performing artists at our Saturday night party. I know we still got some ironing out to do, but usually we have a DJ, which we'll probably have too, but it's going to be country town and country music. And we got a couple probably well-known artists that might perform for the BirdGang there for a little set on the Music Row there.
Yeah, no, we got big things planned for Nashville. Obviously, we went to New Orleans 2 seasons ago. We had the big parade down Bourbon Street, and it was awesome to see about 1,000 Cardinal fans all in red walking down Bourbon Street. It was definitely one of the cooler things we've ever done on a trip. So we will add to that in Nashville. We've always got to go a little bit better, add a little bit more flavor.
And I mean, it's still open, Blake Shelton. We've been trying to contact him, so we never know. He might come through. He might. We'll have to see.
We're gonna have to ask a few favors to pull that off.
Yeah. Hey, John, can you loan us a few bucks so we can pay for Blake Shelton's appearance?
Dude, I spent 8 weeks in Nashville at the end of my career, and I think I spent most of my money when I was out on Bourbon Street and partying out there.
All right.
Don't blame you.
I didn't know. I thought maybe you were one of those guys that never cashed any of their game checks yet. So
that's not me. So I think it'll be a great experience for the fans. I think it'll be a great test for the Cardinals.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm looking at this as the Zaven Collins, Isaiah Simmons game. Like John said, if it's going to be a slugfest, if those linebackers hold up and are able to make plays and stop Derrick Henry, I think the Cards have a good chance there. But if they don't, that's hey, welcome to the NFL. And now you get maybe the best running back in the league to start off. This is going to be a great test for Arizona coming out of the gate.
100%. Johnny Venerable.
What's up, fellas? Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Good to
thanks
be
for
here.
joining us. We jumped the gun on you. We apologize.
Hey,
We started a
not a
couple
problem.
that schedule dropped about 7 minutes before top of the hour, and it was
Not a
like, okay, we're
problem.
live. It looks like. We just broke down week 1, Nashville. What are your thoughts? Derrick Henry Express, as I'm labeling it. We're running right up against that week 1.
Yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for the Cardinals to start 1-0. You've got a lot of turnover with this Tennessee team. They lost a coordinator offensively. You've lost key personnel offensively with Tennessee. They lost Jonnu Smith. They lost Corey Davis. It's a team that I thought is going to be on the regression track. Last year, it didn't make it as far in the postseason. Have struggled with mobile quarterbacks at times. Defensively, with a defensive head coach like Mike Vrabel, just not great on that side of the ball. I think for the Cardinals, if they can start fast, which in a lot of the games early last year they did. You look at Washington, some of the games they won in the first half of their schedule. If they start fast, this is a recipe for a victory, in my opinion. You talk about the improved pass rush with J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, the fact that when Tennessee struggled, they had to play from behind. I look at that Green Bay game late last year, struggle with Baltimore in the playoffs. To me, I do not look at this game like a potential loss, and I think Vegas is telling you that as well, just being a 2.5 dog, and the fact that typically
that's
it's
typically
a
what you
game.
get for being the home team, right?
Right.
You get that
Absolutely.
2 points, it's automatic, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think this is a great chance for them to solidify themselves as a true playoff contender and really putting to bed a Tennessee team. Again, tons of turnover, especially in their secondary. The Cardinals now welcome Malcolm Butler. I think you're playing Tennessee at the perfect time. Ryan Tannehill, who, I think a lot of us are still skeptical of being able to have a new offensive coordinator. Cardinals should come in, same OC, same defensive coordinator, upgraded, multitude of positions, specifically on the line of scrimmage. To me, I think this is a perfect chance for them to not shock the NFL world, not like they did last year, week 1 against San Francisco. I think it's a sneaky game that they could win handedly.
No, great take.
Bet the under. It's going to be a lot of running.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No. And you hope the Cardinals, with the added line help, they'll add a nice little run game to the mix this year, and it won't be so air. But going on to week 2 with a friendly face, Patrick Peterson, now in Minnesota. They will be here. We'll be hosting Patrick. How weird will that'll be to see him in a different uniform inside our stadium so early in the season. Let's go to you, John. You played with Patrick. Talk about it. What do you think about Minnesota?
Yeah, the first thing I saw with Minnesota and Pat coming back home was we were probably all sitting around 4 years ago talking about, Larry might go to Minnesota and Larry's going to try to get a ring. Just imagine when Larry comes back and this and that. And, now it's a defensive guy. It's Patrick Peterson, who, in my opinion, still has some left in the tank. He's going to come firing on all cylinders. He knows the offense. He's seen it in practice, not only Murray, but the entire offense. So he knows what to expect going into that. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think he'll get a warm welcome. I know the Cardinals fans, they're not like Philly fans. I don't think they're going to boo a guy like Patrick Peterson, who poured his blood, sweat, and tears into this game for the community here. So it'll be fun. I'm excited to see that matchup.
Awesome. Off to my guys at Revenge of the Birds, Blake.
Yeah, it's a young offensive line in Minnesota. That's the first thing you think of always, is that Mike Zimmer defense. Patrick Peterson added to that. He loves cornerbacks so much. You'd always joke Zimmer would basically just go O-line corner almost every year, it seems like. So you got a rookie in Darisaw who will probably be manning the left side. You got another rookie in Wyatt Davis that they drafted this year. And then the only player, I believe, who's older than I think the last 3 years is Brian O'Neill, who's probably their starting right tackle. Kirk is one of those guys who he's always been one of those consistent level quarterbacks. I think in this game, a lot of it's going to be with Arizona having to be able to look at that young offensive line, get after it with Jones and Watt. I think that if this was a game that was played in Minnesota, I would probably say that I'd give the Vikings a slight edge. This is a home game for the Cardinals. So like John said, I like this as a game where if they can manage to, get pressure on Kirk for that one, limit some of those big plays to Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and be able to run the ball themselves, I think this is a good spot. Now, that said, it's a tough front seven. John said you throw P2 in the mix looking for prove himself. I think this is one of those games where it's going to be close. It wouldn't shock me, at least, if it ends up being a loss for the Cardinals. But right now, I have to give them at least a 3-point edge, just because you get Watt and Jones up against a young offensive line. I'll take those pass rushers 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah, I think too, Blake, this might be the J.J. Watt welcome to Arizona, where he might only see 15 snaps, but of those snaps, he's going to be on third down, pin your ears back, and try to get to the quarterback.
What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I think this Minnesota team, listen, they are supposed to be a defensive-heavy team, and last year they were exposed specifically with the run defense. They became like an aerial assault team playing from behind, kind of soft in a lot of ways. They play the game now, and that's not Mike Zimmer football. So I would expect from a schematic standpoint, they're going to be much improved defensively. But from a personnel standpoint, I still think this roster, when you have Cousins in the fold, I mean, it's as strong as possible, and they're still going to top out at, 8 or 9 wins. So I agree with my counterpart in Blake that I think that if this game was in Minnesota, the Cardinals historically have struggled there. Last couple instances when Minnesota has had to travel across country and play in Arizona, the Cardinals typically get the best of them. I think that now with Rodney Hudson in the fold, the fact that Minnesota couldn't stop the run last year, being able to pound the rock with Chase Edmonds and James Conner, working off of that play action, this could be the big RPO game, the first one of the season for Kyler Murray, where the Cardinals could go for $150 plus on the ground, control the tempo, the line of scrimmage, and then as John mentioned, really be able to bring that pass rush and that heat to a pocket passer. I mean, how many more traditional pocket passers really do we have left in the NFL? Kirk's kind of a little bit of a dying breed. You talk about Chandler and Marcus and Isaiah Simmons, and of course, J.J. Watt, Jordan Phillips, who I think is going to have a bounce back year. I think this is a game where the Cardinals control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, make Kirk Cousins uncomfortable, and they come out. I think they're going to start the season 2-0.
Wow. Hey, let's not give those takes yet, because I'm going to go after we get through week 4. We're going to go through and we're all going to say what we think through 4 weeks. But that is I like that optimism. Eric, from the fan perspective, you obviously had a great relationship with Pat over the years, early on in his career, and were instrumental in the relationship of our first year of providing signed footballs for packages. You really helped get that going with getting Pat to be our first sponsored player of the year when it comes to our trip. So how is that going to be for you, seeing Pat in different colors in our stadium?
I mean, it would probably be a little rough. I was friends with Pat. I became friends with Pat when he was in his senior year at LSU, just through a chance meeting. At that point, I told him I would love to see him in Cardinals red. So it happened. So we kind of hit it off the bat, and we became really good friends. Golfed a little bit with him, and got to know him really well. And it's going to be rough. I mean, I supported the guy. There's a lot of things I didn't like, some of the things that were said later in his career here with us, and a lot of whining and stuff like that. So I kind of bit my tongue a couple things. I mean, I'm not in the guy's shoes. I don't know what he goes through every day in the locker room, but hopefully I'll get to run into him, prior. Maybe I'll swing by the Vikings hotel here in the Valley and say hi to him and stuff. I still have his number, so we still chit chat back and forth. So it's a mutual respect. He's a great athlete and a good human being. So no matter what happens, no matter what team he's with, I wish him the best. Hopefully Kyler Murray can burn him for a couple touchdowns. So.
That would be nice to see. Week 3, we are back on the road in another game that we are looking at traveling for in Jacksonville. Obviously, Jacksonville, the biggest overhaul and new look this season, new quarterback, new running back. Interesting to see how that is. And I think it comes at a good time of the year, being early. What is the Trevor Lawrence adjustment early on? You get a rookie and a number 1 pick really early in the season. I think that shakes out pretty good for the Cardinals. Let's talk about quarterback again. John, in this situation, early in your career, you were thrown into a starting role a little bit differently, but you had to go through that, all the motions and the adjustments. What do you think about the Trevor Lawrence show now in Jacksonville?
Yeah, don't be modest. It's not a little different. I was a 5th round. He was a 1st overall. I think the expectations are a little different. I think when it comes to a rookie quarterback, he is probably in the best position. He's got a rookie coach who knows the college game, who's coming in. He's going to craft that offense to be more like something that he's used to doing. It's not going to be a true pro style. I don't think it's going to be a true college run and shoot type thing. It's going to be an interesting situation out there. There's a lot of new pieces involved. I think Urban's going to have more of a Nick Saban type NFL career than he is a Pete Carroll type career, and that's just me speaking from the cuff. But it'll be an interesting matchup with us going to Jacksonville in week 3 after having 2 home games. So there's a lot of moving parts. I don't know what to think of this game.
Yeah. Johnny, going to you.
Yeah, you know what? I think this could be a potential trap game like we saw with Carolina last year when they had to travel to the East Coast. I hope I'm wrong. You're going to get a team. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to get better every week, similar to how Andrew Luck looked his rookie season. They do have some nice weaponry offensively. The running back happened to go to my alma mater at Illinois State, so I'm biased to him. And they also have Travis Etienne in the fold. They've got some nice complementary receivers. It's just, can the Cardinals maximize the inefficiencies that they have defensively? Urban is kind of a de facto offensive coach. So can the Cardinals go in, take care of business, put up 30-plus points like they should on a team that's clearly rebuilding specifically on that side of the ball? But if they let them hang around for enough, I mean, we've seen this young man and Trevor Lawrence perform at the highest stage in the national level. I don't think the NFL is going to appear too big for him. And this is a game, again, these are the games the Cardinals blew last year that cost them postseason opportunities, aspirations. They look good in primetime. It's these hidden, tucked away kind of 10 a.m. games against New England and against Carolina, where they had to travel and you have to put your big boy pants on and take care of business against lesser teams in order to punch your ticket to the postseason. So I think this is going to be their first real test of, are you lackadaisical? Are you not buttoned up? Is this a team that we saw, flutter down the stretch last year when we all thought you had postseason aspirations? If you take care of business against the Jacksonvilles of the world, then that bodes well for you, because I can't take you seriously when you're losing to teams like this in Carolina last year.
No, yeah. It will be interesting because I feel for the past couple of years, that's how this team's been. They don't get up for these games on the road. They're early, and it bites them for sure. Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a game where it feels very similar to how, like John, you mentioned Andrew Luck, at least for how it starts. They're a very offensive-heavy team if you look at how Jacksonville has been designed. They've got a few stud players like in Josh Allen, the draft pick, Miles Jack. But in the secondary, they're still super young and super inexperienced. You're talking about, a first-round pick last year in Henderson. Up front, that Blake Bortles 2017 AFC Championship game, Jaguars, those guys are mostly gone. The guys like Calais Campbell has moved on. They really are a team, at least, that's tried to build enough weapons. They did sign Marvin Jones in the offseason, get Laviska Shenault year 2. I think that part of what I like to look at for the Jaguars is who are some of the teams they're going to be playing before they come to Arizona, or I should say before Arizona goes to them. They play the Texans week 1. That may be the worst team in the NFL, hands down right now on paper. Next week is the tough Broncos defense. That's going to be at home. I think that's going to be a really interesting question, is how good does Trevor Lawrence look against that Broncos defense? If he ends up kind of struggling, having some of those rookie issues, that may be where the Cardinals may come into this week 3 game and say, hey, this is one of those games we tie down, do our business. We should be able to walk out of here with the win. I don't see a way that they're not favored in that game. And like John said, the biggest thing, at least, is we saw last year with the Panthers, it was a trap game. They went into a game that you felt like they should have won against a relatively decent offensive team, and they let it down. I think that that's something that can't happen this year, and we'll see if the veteran leadership that they've added in the offseason ends up helping with this as a win. So I think that, like John said, this could be a trap game. I think the Cardinals have a good chance if they're able to get past week 1 of the Titans to start 3-0. I think a lot will hinge. If they can start 2-1 before they get to the division, that may be kind of more of your, realistic scenario, because it is the NFL and every team at this level, even a team like the Jaguars, can still pull off a win.
No one brought up the biggest addition of the offseason for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Are we not going to talk about Tim Tebow? Is that not going to happen? No. Go ahead, John.
No, fuck Tim Tebow. They're trying to sell tickets. They're coming. We got a first overall pick quarterback, new coach. Let's bring Tebow in. We'll sell some more premium seats. We'll go 0-3 and go from there.
So
he's taking the what is it? The
oh, go ahead, Mike.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, they're going with the Logan Thomas approach. Like that was one of the things that was awesome to see was like how Logan's like came back and was like, wait, he's the top tight end on their depth chart. That's great. I actually like their Josh Oliver, the guy. I think he was a San Diego State guy. He's got some speed, so it'll be interesting to see if Tebow does make that roster. Like that was one of the questions I have is, hey, is Urban just going to like pull Trevor off the field, pull ETN off the field? Here comes in your Tim Tebow package and make fantasy football owners just go crazy. Like if that ends up being the case, then it'll be entertaining in Jacksonville. But like John said, it's just like, why are we doing this for the most part? It doesn't seem to make football sense. It does make a lot more marketing sense.
If he makes the 53-man roster, I'm going to bet my house on the under for the amount of wins Jacksonville gets.
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Well, moving on into week 4, we will be on the road again, this time next door in Los Angeles, facing the Rams for a divisional game. That will be the first divisional game of the season. Your third road game of the 4-week stretch. And actually, before we talk on that, Alex Clancy joined in the crew of the Locked On
to the show
podcast. Alex, what's going on, my man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We are going to after we cover this Rams game week 4, we are actually going to go through the first 4 games and see what everyone thinks through 4 weeks. So let's start with this Rams game. Johnny, what do you think? Johnny Venerable.
If they want to be taken seriously at some point, they have to beat Sean McVay. And I do think this is an opportunity. Again, the Rams, to me, are going to have more of a learning curve than they've had in the past. They've lost some coordinators, and now you've got a new quarterback in the fold. And, I'm a Matthew Stafford fan, but I also think that, the Cardinals have had his number in the past. Now, he obviously came to State Farm Stadium last year, and they suffered that humiliating defeat against the Detroit Lions. But I'm going to go out on a limb. I think this is the best opportunity for the Cardinals to knock off a Rams team that typically underperforms early in the season. They finished strong. They finished strong last year, got their together to make the postseason, won a postseason game. But they're right now, to me, they're the kind of the darlings of the NFC outside of Tampa, with haven't really proved that much. I know that they've got this young, energetic head coach. They certainly have the Cardinals number. But this is the game you brought J.J. Watt to Arizona. You cannot allow this team to push you around up front historically anymore. This is the J.J. Watt, Rodney Hudson staple game to announce to the NFL that we're going to be taken seriously. And so I think that, granted, it's in L.A., to me, I don't think the Rams have much of a home field advantage. This is a game where you come in, you get fired up, and you take it to a team that's still going through a little bit of a roster change, turnover with their personnel, a new quarterback in the fold. I like Arizona's chances here to knock off the Rams because at some point you have to be able to beat Sean McVay.
No, for sure. Alex, what do you think?
I think it's really predicated upon the momentum they have going into week 4. Like if they go to Jacksonville and lose, it's going to be tougher for them to go to SoFi and win. This team really started hot last year. They got some bounces they didn't necessarily think they were going to get. Everything that Johnny says is right. I don't trust Matt Stafford until I see Matt Stafford do things in a bigger spotlight. But I trust Sean McVay. I trust Sean McVay more than I trust Cliff Kingsbury. And this would be a huge growing up win for the Cardinals in week 4, especially being on the road. 3 of the first 4 weeks, 4 out of the first 6. It's a really tough start to the schedule, to an already tough schedule. I would call it an L just because fool me 100 times, shame on me if I go the other way until I see it.
Yeah, no, and something you hit on when we talk about a rough schedule, the Cardinals, and we'll get more into this later, 13th, tied for the 13th toughest schedule in the NFL this year with Tennessee. The Rams, though, have the 10th hardest schedule. So just throwing that out there as well. Blake, your thoughts on the Rams?
Hey, they're going to be coming off a game at Tampa Bay from the week previously before they play Arizona. I think this may be it's hard to say any game defines your season more, but I think that this would be, if I had to pick it, the season-defining game for 2021 for the Cardinals, because if you go in and see how the Cardinals started off last year, being able to get out to a hot start early, that was super important. If you end up falling into a trap, like John said, in Jacksonville, and then have to go and play likes of Aaron Donald and a Rams team that has never lost to the Cardinals under Sean McVay, a lot of it, I think, is going to have to step up on not just the offensive line to protect. Obviously, you added Rodney Hudson for a game like this to be able to stop that pass rush. You've got Jalen Ramsey on the other side. Arizona struggled to get the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm looking at this game and saying, hey, who do the Rams have as their other cornerbacks after they lost a lot of they lost so many of these guys in the defensive backfield. It's going to really be impingent on AJ Green to be able to prove he's got something left in the tank. Is Christian Kirk in the slot? And then obviously they drafted Rondale Moore as a speed guy. The thing that to me scares me a bit is the only guy who's really managed to go off against the Rams was Dan Arnold. Cardinals don't seem to have that weapon right now at tight end. He would always seem to kind of escape for however it was. Crazy how he'd always get out for 1 or 2 touchdowns a game against the Rams the last 2 seasons. He's now gone. Do the Cardinals have enough to be able to compete? Because, with Sean McVay and the Rams, you're bringing a guy like Stafford in now who can make a little bit done when he's moving around. That, to me, says that this game either could be a shootout, but if things happen to go a bit wrong, you get a drop or 2, maybe a turnover or 2, and you're not able to take advantage of that weak secondary, this could be another tough sledding game for the Cardinals. Win this game, and people will talk to you about as contender. Lose this game, and I think people are going to be talking about a difficult uphill stretch. You kind of look back to some of those earlier Cardinal seasons like 2019 or even 2018 where things started to go downhill from there. I've got this as a loss with Alex as well. I think that we'll know, however, based on how they play against the Bucs, if this game is projected to be a win or a loss based on how the Rams come out against the champs.
John, Matt Stafford, I feel like we play him every year already, so you might as well have him in the division now. What do you think about the Rams?
He's a top quarterback in the league. I know the win-loss column's not great. He spent the bulk of his career up in Detroit, but it's definitely an upgrade from what they had. They're going to come out shooting. In LA, SoFi, first divisional game for the Cardinals. I think a lot of it is predicated, like Alex said, on what they did the week before. It says to lose a game in Jacksonville and then go back home for 6 days before going to LA, that momentum builds one way or another. So depending on how those first couple games go, especially that road game against Jacksonville, which you guys were labeling as a trap game, which I don't disagree with, it's going to be a momentum shifter one way or another. I don't think it's a make or break season, like you said, John, but I do think it's going to shift momentum for the next few games in one way or the other. And I think Stafford and how they're playing as an offense going into week 4 is going to predicate a lot on that.
So let's recap the first 4 weeks here. We're just going to go win-loss. At Nashville, week 1. Alex.
Loss.
Eric. Eric, you're on mute.
I was on mute. You know what? I'm saying, who's our field goal kicker now? I don't even know. Who do we got? Who's kicking field goals for us?
Raider.
3-point win in overtime.
There we go. Ooh. We'll take a win. All right. John Skelton.
2017 Titans win.
Ooh, actual scores.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Blake.
I got this one at least with the rookie linebacker, with everything going up against a playoff team. Like, if the Cardinals can win this one, I think we'll change it. But right now, I'll have this as a loss for week 1.
And Johnny V.
Well, I'm on an island, and I'm usually pinned as the negative one. I think the Cardinals win this game, and I think they win it kind of handedly. I think they have the better quarterback. I think the roster is more complete. They have the better line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. When was the last time an NFL game was decided by a running back? I'm going to go with everything else that matters in the NFL. Their secondary is subpar. Defensively, they don't have any personnel that scares me. So I like the Cardinals in this game, something to the effect of like 30-17.
Okay, I had it as a loss, and you just sold me. I've moved it to win, and here's why. And the thought you made me think of was J.J. Watt, the leadership that he brings.
Coming from the AFC South, And I asked Blake, I picked the Cardinals to win opening week last year, and they won. So
It's true.
Tyler, I better not see you in line at the betting window at the stadium ever. Is all I want to say.
I'll go with. I'm switching to a win just because of the J.J. Watt factor, and I think that's what you're bringing him in for. That better be the difference.
Absolutely.
Week 2, Minnesota. Skelton, what do you got at home, Minnesota?
I think Johnny mentioned it earlier. I think because it's at home, it's going to be a W for the Cardinals. It's going to be close, and I think it's going to be a defensive battle because I think our front line is going to get there.
Johnny, win or loss? Home.
I think it's a win. I think it's much closer, like John mentioned, than week 1 because they've got so many great pros on that team. But I think the emotion of Patrick Peterson coming back, I think the Cardinals eke out a win in the fourth quarter. And I think they moved to 2-0.
Awesome. Blake, what do you got? Win, loss?
Yeah, these 2 games against Titans and Minnesota for me are kind of coin flips. I gave them a loss to them. I think that when you look at that line, I'll take the Cardinals defensive line rushing against a young Minnesota offensive line, and then seeing all the veterans you've got now on the Cardinals offensive line. I'll take the Cardinals to win that one with their home opener.
Eric, win, loss?
I think it's a win against Minnesota, and I think it's a big win. I'm giving them an 18-point win at home for the home opener, coming off my 3-point, like I said, overtime win in Tennessee. Team's going to be jacked up. DeAndre Hopkins is going to light up Patrick Peterson.
Alex, what do you got? Win, loss, Minnesota?
I've got to win, but Johnny, quickly, with Tennessee, it's A.J. Brown that worries me. It's not Derrick Henry. With this, I mean, I don't see anybody in the cornerback room that's going to stop any of the wide receiver ones. And that's just looking at a roster. We'll see if Tay Gowan can be the guy that people thinks he could be, being a top 100 guy. Marco Wilson doesn't throw any shoes if he could be the guy. But as of right now, when you look with Minnesota, I think it's a win. But I think this is more of a shootout, and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen could potentially run roughshod. I just think the Cardinals' offense is peaked higher than Minnesota's offense, so I give the Cardinals a win at home.
I'm looking at this right now. Myself, Eric, and Johnny V all have 2-0 right now, and I don't know if me and Eric are being homers and Johnny's being the real analyst here, or
they started 2-0 last year. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility.
That's a good point. Okay, Jacksonville. Johnny V, go ahead.
I think it's a W. I think they start 3-0. I genuinely believe this. I think that, again, J.J. Watt playing his former division, you're going to overwhelm Trevor Lawrence with your pass rush. I think Vance's Joseph plays really well to start the season. It's a veteran-led team outside of your 2 inside linebackers, but you've got Isaiah Simmons now 1 year in. I think Xavier Collins is going to be one of these rookies that the Cardinals have not had in some time, that they clearly feel like he's going to be able to come in, take the bull by the horns, and have that kind of special inside linebacker rookie-esque season. The rest of the defense is led by veterans. I mean, Malcolm Butler doesn't have the gravitas of Patrick Peterson, is a better corner right now than Patrick Peterson is. It's not disputable. And then you look at Budda Baker, is firmly in his prime. 2 veteran outside pass rushers. Really, the only one you're worried about liability standpoint is the 16th overall pick. I'll take that. So I think they overwhelm Jacksonville. They force a couple turnovers. Maybe they can play sloppy offensively and still win this game. They just can't no-show like they did in Carolina and New England last year. I think they start 3-0.
Alex, what do you think?
I think it's a win, too. I think 2-1 is a little bit more humble than 3-0. Johnny Venerable throwing out gunshots immediately, 28 minutes after getting the schedule. I love it. Jacksonville's gonna be like a baby fawn, and we don't know if they're gonna be able to walk on their own yet. Like, we're gonna find out how good Trevor Lawrence is gonna be pretty much in week 2, and the Cardinals are gonna figure out a game plan to just blitz all night. My favorite sports movie quote ever from Remember the Titans: "You blitz all night." That's gonna be Vance Joseph's game plan, and if they get home, then they'll beat Jacksonville pretty handily on the road.
I also have a win there, and I'm also at 3-0. I look at it. I think 2-1 is more realistic. I think that Nashville is the coin flip to me. I think if they come out the way we would all hope for them to come out, that's your 3-0. I think Minnesota and Jacksonville need to be W's. Skelton, what do we got? Loss or win in Jacksonville?
First of all, Tyler, don't hedge your bets and say I got 3-0, but. Because then you're going to be like, but. So don't be doing that. But
I'm
I
going to be
think
winning
that
at the casino all day with those takes.
you easily could, but I think the Cardinals are going to win. I think it's going to be ugly football, rookie quarterback playing a good defense, and the Cardinals on the road. I think it's going to be ugly football, and that's games like that is the reason I have a Sunday ticket.
Nice. Blake, loss or win?
I got this one as a win. Again, like, you talk about hedging bet. The 10 a.m. East Coast games have traditionally not been good for the Cardinals. Like, you look at the Panthers game last year, some of the other struggles. I think this is a game where they stumble a little bit more than you expect up front, but are able to put it together just because I just think they just have way more talent than Jacksonville right now. I think they got way more veterans than Jacksonville right now. I think that this would be one of those games that, like you said, you worry about it being a trap game, but it's hard to see at least the Cardinals dropping this game to a Jaguars team that's in the process of rebuilding. If they do, there's going to be a whole lot of, I think, worries as far as with the Cardinals, but I don't see that being at least the case right now. So, yeah, I got this as a win.
Eric, loss or win?
All right, well, I'm 2-0 at this point, but unfortunately, I lean towards a loss on this one. It's that travel. It's that long flight. It's that East Coast bite us. It happens every time, man. I even hate traveling to those games on the East Coast myself because I know odds are I'm not going to see a win, and I've just spent all my money to head out there and watch the game. So just that with that alone, I'm saying this is 2-1 right
Not
here.
a great commercial for BirdGang Travel, Eric. Thank you.
Well, I'm not saying, you can still go. There's a lot of good stuff to do in Jacksonville. The alligator's really good in Jacksonville. I've been there before. It's fun. The stadium's great.
Yeah.
It's humid. It's hot. They don't have many fans, so it's pretty easy there.
Prime for a takeover. All right, week 5. Oh, and so to recap the first 4 weeks there, everyone but Eric had us at a 2-game win streak for weeks 2 and 3 there. Oh, no, we didn't cover week 4. Let's do week 4 real quick. The Rams, at the Rams. Skelton, go for it.
Loss. I think, Alex, you said it earlier. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Let's see if they can win on the road against a good Rams team.
Blake?
Yeah, I also got a loss. I got them starting 2-2. If they can beat the Titans week 1, I think that you may look at them as if this is a playoff team or not. I think that's where it's going to hinge a lot. I got this as a loss. Prove to me that you can beat Sean McVay. I think that you have a better chance of doing it at home than on the roads. I got this as an L.
Johnny?
Yeah, I'll echo that. I can't have them. First of all, I can't have them starting 4-0.
4-0.
Even though they did.
Be bold, John. Be bold. Go for it.
John, you were on the team when they started 4-0 in 2012, were you not?
I was.
Yeah,
there was playoff buzz going into week 5, and we finished 5-11.
5-11. They have to beat Sean McVay for me to predict that they're ever going to beat them preseason. And I think, they look the part on paper. I do think there's going to be a transition with their coordinators and their quarterback, but I just that is too much of a disadvantage. Kingsbury versus McVay. We've seen that now. Goodness, it was a disadvantage when you had Bruce Arians on the sideline. So I'll say a loss. They're 3-1 to start the first quarter of the season.
All right, Alex, what do you got? Win or loss?
Yeah, this is one of those games. Now that we're talking about it, this is one where everybody looks one way and the NFL happens. But still, I still can't. I can't say a win here. I can't do it. It's just we don't know what this roster is going to look like for the Cardinals, regardless of who they're playing. They could beat any team, and the roster is currently constructed, could beat any team in the NFL on a given Sunday. I just don't think that they could beat Sean McVay. I think it's just one of those things at this point. So again, until they do, as Skelton said, I'm no shot. Loss.
Eric, win or loss?
I think this game right here puts them at 2-2. However, I will be in the house. I think I'm going to make the drive to check out that new stadium. I think the Cardinals fall victim to being overwhelmed by that stadium, the Hollywood flair, and Sean McVay puts another loss on the board right there, back-to-back losses. I would definitely say going to happen that week.
And overwhelmed with Aaron Donald again. So going through 4 weeks, everybody but Johnny Venerable and I have us at 2-2. Me and Johnny Venerable have him at 3-1. Oh, I love it. Okay, going into week 5, we are home. We are back in the nest against San Francisco. So back-to-back divisional games. First in LA with the Rams, and now at home with San Francisco. John Skelton, talk about the 49ers. And will Jimmy G be the quarterback come week 5?
I've been in those situations. If you got 2 quarterbacks, you got 0 quarterbacks. So I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know who's going to be the starter week 1, let alone week 5. It'll be interesting. San Francisco coming here, Cardinals at home after 2 road games. I'm going to take the Cardinals on that one. And I don't know. I can't say much more beyond that. There's so much up in the air coming week 5 with the San Francisco team.
So John's got a W. Okay. Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, again, when it comes to who's the QB, the Cardinals really have struggled against Jimmy Garoppolo every game, except for essentially, the one first game to start 2019. Probably part of his performance is why they went out and got a new QB. I have a feeling, this is just me, that historically the Niners have not been a team that just throws a rookie quarterback into the fire. They did with Alex Smith years and years ago, but I have a feeling this is going to be a Jimmy Garoppolo type of game, and then we see them bring Trey Lance in a bit later in the season, give him some time. I think that this game comes down to Mike McGlinchey against either Chandler Jones or the likes of J.J. Watt. Last year, Arizona benefited from having Budda Baker knocking George Kittle out of the game. If he's back and he's healthy, this is going to be really interesting to see. I think that right now, this is one of those games that you could see going to overtime. I'll take the Cardinals at least slightly in a win here, but if I do give them a win here, I don't see them going 2-0 against the Niners. I'd have to give them a loss later. So when you're looking at the schedule, all right, I'll say that they start off with the game as a loss, end up starting with a 2-3 type of schedule for the most part. I do think at least that, like you said, it's really going to be something to see, because if they do bring Trey Lance in, the dude was like a 100-plus yard rusher a lot of times against weak competition. Maybe a little bit of that handing the torch from Alex Smith to Colin Kaepernick comes in. I'll be very curious to see how that goes for the most part, since Niners on paper have one of the better rosters, and they, despite being 4th in the NFC West, they got five games this year in national TV. So I've got this one at least. Hey, if Mike McGlinchey gets beat and it's Jimmy Garoppolo back there, give me the Cards. If it is going to be a Trey Lance, oh man, stuff. I will say that this one is a loss for right now, just because the Niners at this point of the season, I think, should still probably be healthy.
Okay.
A lot of moving pieces for that game.
Oh, a lot of moving pieces. I'll start to QB.
Johnny, what do we got?
It's disheartening that how well San Francisco defensively played the Cardinals in that, what was it, Week 16 matchup last year. Robert Saleh's kind of staple is solidifying himself as a top head coaching candidate. Can DeMeco Ryan, their new defensive coordinator, replicate that? He's going to get some horses back defensively. As Nick mentioned, as Blake mentioned, you get Nick Bosa back now. They've got another year under the belt for somebody like Javon Kinlaw. Can those guys make a difference? To me, one of the most disheartening things that we saw in that game late last year was Jason Verrett and the job he did on DeAndre Hopkins. The fact that it was a complete polar opposite from week 1 to that point. Jason Verrett is back. I think that's something that not enough people are talking about. So it's going to be up to, can the Cardinals find other avenues, specifically in this game, to score? They couldn't find that the second half of last year. Other than Kyler Murray playing backyard football with DeAndre Hopkins, they didn't have sustainability offensively. And I'm just concerned that, if San Francisco can play the run with Fred Warner, and you've got Kyle Shanahan, who historically owns Vance Joseph, to me, I just think San Francisco, while I think the Cardinals have a definitive advantage at quarterback, just have a more complete roster. I think, if, like Blake mentioned, if they're healthy early enough in the season, they've got some impressive receivers. They've been able to develop a Deebo Samuel, a Brandon Ayuk. The Cardinals haven't found that complimentary number 2 receiver to Hopkins. So if the Cardinals are humming offensively to start the season, I'll feel better about it. The Cardinals benefited from opening with San Francisco last year, mixing in that RPO running element of Kyler Murray that really caught San Francisco off guard. I think this is a loss, unfortunately. You're looking at back-to-back divisional losses. I think it'll be close. It'll be in Arizona. But as long as San Francisco is healthy, they're better coached and they have a more complete roster. And Trent Williams, unfortunately, historically owns Chandler Jones.
Yeah, no, he's won that matchup for sure. With losing Robert Saleh, and also that defense was really banged up last year. So having to get to know each other again, and it still being early in the season, and with the quarterback unknowns, I'm going to give the Cardinals a W, especially because it's at home. Now, I will
yeah.
say when we get to that road game later, that's where I worry when we get to that road game. And now maybe the Niners will be more settled in at quarterback. Their defense will be firing on all cylinders again. Remember, that defense 2 seasons ago was scary. So, you add that all into the fold, and I think that's going to be the difference later on. So I'm going to give the Cardinals a W there for that first matchup, depending how clean they come out of that Rams game. Because remember, the Rams historically have
that's a great point.
They've come out pretty bruised and beaten many times we've played the Rams. So they're a very physical team. So if we can come out healthy through those first 4 weeks, I would think at home against San Francisco, when they're still trying to figure out who they are, I think we could pull out that W there. Eric, what do you think?
Well, I'm kind of torn on this game, and I had to go put the hoodie on only because I think week 5, the experiment begins. So
there you go.
I think it's, my wife's NDSU alma mater. I watched him play. I watched Trey Lance play in college. I think it's it. I think it's his team to run with starting week 5, whether it be just poor performance by Jimmy G or an injury possibly. So I'm excited to see it. I think it'll be a good shootout. I don't know who will outrun who, him or Murray, get the most yardage in the game. I got the Cardinals pegged to win it, but I think week 5 is where the Trey Lance experiment takes place and goes from there for San Fran.
Yeah, let me say this, Eric, because I think I agree with you here. If Jimmy G is still starting in week 4 and the Cardinals do go off and sack him a bunch, if McGlinchey can't hold up or if there's issues and they drop that game, I would say for sure that he'd be starting by week 6 the following week then. So I think, you might be right on week 5, week 6. That may be Trey Lance time.
His first start's going to be a home game. It's going to be a home game. It's going to, like you said, Blake, Garoppolo might have an ugly showing on the road against Arizona. They'll give him a start the following week 6 at home.
There you go.
Sounds good.
Alex had to hop off to do a quick hit for Locked On Cardinals. He'll be back. He gives the Cardinals a win. He didn't give me any explanation. He just sent me. He gives them a win at home against San Fran. I think it's for all the reasons I said. So going on to week 6 at Cleveland. Somewhere, Eric, you and I have been. That was our first. That's when friendship began.
That's where our bromance was solidified in Cleveland. Yes.
Yeah. One night in Cleveland. There you go.
One night in Cleveland at the Christmas Story House. There's many memories.
Yeah. No, Cleveland was a great trip. So we will be in Cleveland October 17th. That is a Sunday. Last time we were there, it was actually Halloween weekend. So this is a couple weeks earlier. Blake, what do you think about us at the Browns? We got the better of the Browns. Was it last season or season before? I can't even remember. I was there. So
that was the Steve Wilkes revenge game, if I remember correctly, where the Cardinals just ran all over that Browns defense, kind of solidified that Freddie Kitchens was going to be let go. Now, Browns have probably one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. If you look at them from top to bottom, which is, 4 or 5 years ago, you'd have been stunned by some of that. They made some big additions to their secondary this offseason, have been strong up front with Myles Garrett. I think that this is a game where you're going to be on the road against the dog pound. The Browns, just their offensive line overall, with getting some of the solid play from Jedrick Wills, being able to have Jack Conklin was brought into the fold. I think that this is one of those games where when you're going to talk about it, it's really going to depend on coming into the game. Are we talking about Kyler Murray as being a breakout season, or are we talking about Baker Mayfield as being one of those guys who is just not living up to what people are expecting him this year? I don't see either of those being the case so far through the schedule, so I will give the Browns here, at least for this one, which would be a bit stunning to have the Cardinals starting out at 2-4. I could see them having about 3-3, but right now, at least just looking at this, this is one of those games that's going to be tough. They ran away with it on the Browns last time, but it wasn't a really close game up until the fourth quarter, if I remember correctly. So I think that this is going to be one of those avenues that you just want to talk about who's the weakest link on your team. To me, the Cardinals have more weak links than the Browns at this point, unless, like I said, that weak link for the Browns is their quarterback in Baker Mayfield.
Skelton, what do you think?
Yeah, just to piggyback off what Blake said, I think it's going to come down to the quarterback play. It's locally with Murray, how is he going to be on the road going to Cleveland? And then Cleveland's a playoff team. They play in a tough NFC North. It's always a knockout, drag-out fight out there. I think a lot is going to come down to the quarterback play, and not necessarily who makes more plays or who looks like they're carrying that offense. I think it's going to come down to who makes less mistakes. And I think that season or that game is going to predict a lot of the rest of the season, especially for Cleveland. I think they have a lot to gain by a win there, and a lot to lose by losing. And I think Cleveland's going to pull that one out. I think it's going to be a knockout, drag-out fight, as if the Cardinals are an NFC North team.
Wait, hold on. You had that as a win or loss? Hold on, I missed that.
That was a loss. Loss for the Cardinals. Okay. Win for Cleveland.
Yep. Okay. Loss for the Cards there. Who am I missing? Venerable, what do we got?
I think it's a loss too. I think Cleveland's roster might be the most talented in the NFL, and then we don't talk enough about the fact that they've added their pass rush. I think Jadeveon Clowney is a overhyped but a perfect complement to somebody like Myles Garrett. They've got interior pass rush ability. Their defensive line, their front seven is stacked. I think the Cardinals are going to have a tough time traveling cross country to a team that's so complete in areas that they're not complete. I mean, they have so many second and third tier options in the receiving game. They have an embarrassment of riches in their backfield. They've got a franchise rusher, then they've got another franchise rusher. Their quarterback really, I mean, like it's kind of what plagues them against San Francisco. Are you forcing mistakes? Similar to like when they used to play Jared Goff with the Rams. It's like the play action, the bootleg. That's what they're going to do with Baker Mayfield. When they faced Baker Mayfield 2 years ago, yeah, the Cleveland team was better, but they're not, or better than the Cardinals, but the personnel wasn't there. They have loaded and taken advantage of the fact that Baker Mayfield makes no money. And that you could argue their GM, they put together the best complete 53-man roster in the NFL. And while I think it'll be close, I could just see the Cardinals starting to wear down, traveling cross country. You'll be able to bash it in with Chubb. Their offensive line, I would venture, is a top 5 unit in the league. They've got Beckham. They've got Jarvis Landry. That receiver broke out for them last year. They've got a couple different tight ends. I mean, the Cardinals would love David Njoku, and he's like third on their depth chart. So I just think that they're in a position where, again, they won a playoff game last year. To me, this is a team I think that could win 12, 13 games and not be defined by their quarterback. To me, they're what the Titans right now used to be, a very loaded roster with limited quarterback play. So I think this is the Cardinals' third consecutive loss.
That's a great analogy, John. The Titans,
yeah, no one's feeling really good about this Cleveland game. I also have a loss. I just think traveling on the road, and Cleveland looked really good last year at times for sure. The additions they've made in the offseason, I just don't see it as a road game. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one as well. I think Cleveland picks right back up where they left off last season. I thought they were going to, be in the Super Bowl last year. Definitely looked really good. I think, again, between that and we got to travel again, it's one of those games where it'll probably come down to late in the fourth quarter. But I think Cleveland ekes out the win at home against us.
Alex also had us for a loss there, again, for all the reasons I said. So, week 7, we are back at home against a team that's been a hot mess for a few years now. John, your hometown, Houston, Texas. The Texans don't know what's going to be happening at quarterback, obviously, with the crazy Deshaun Watson offseason that he's had. Will be an interesting year for sure. I'm going to give the Cardinals a W there just because I don't know what that team's going to look like come week 7. So, John, what do you think?
Yeah, it's Houston is Houston right now. Just the city of Houston. Their Rockets can't get it going. Texans can't get it going. They don't know which way they're pulling. And not to mention there's 2 former Texan Pro Bowlers now on the Cardinals, and I think those guys are going to be fired up. I think it's going to be what was that?
I said Houston West, baby. We used to be Pittsburgh West, but now we're Houston West.
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those games. The Cardinals are going to come out. They're going to jump out early. Watt's going to pin his ears back, go after whoever's playing quarterback for the Texans. I think it's going to be an easy win for the Cardinals. I kind of feel bad for the Texans going in the opposite direction the Cardinals are going.
Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, this is, like you said, Texans have been a mess. I was talking to a friend of mine who was a Texans fan the other day, and it was like watching the progression of, all right, the Astros may have cheated, but hey, like we got Harden, we got a decent team. Well, all right, so we lost, Harden, lost the Astros. Hey, at least we still have, DeAndre Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, J.J. Watt. Well, all right, well, at least we still have Watt and Deshaun. Okay, well, we still have Deshaun Watt. Okay, well, at least we still have 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watts. Oh, no. Okay, so this is one of those cases where I think it's very possible the Texans are heading into this game with a winless record, and they're going to be playing Arizona on the road. This should be the easiest win the Cardinals get on the season. If you lose this game, this is going to be one of those places where people are really going to start talking about, is this a capable staff? Because whoever they're playing, Tyrod Taylor, is going to be, I think, was it Kellen Mond, I think, one of those quarterbacks that they drafted in the 3rd round with their first pick this year because of need at that position. Even if Deshaun Watson was, for whatever reason, and I don't expect that he's going to play at all this season just with all of the litigation that's against him, I think that this would be a game that the Cardinals should be able to move with, especially when you consider the J.J. Watt factor. This is probably the easiest game to pick, I think, on their schedule, in part because the Texans are they're completely lost right now. And it's unfortunate. I feel bad for a lot of what their fans are going through, at least, but it's one of those cases where you're going to probably have a lot of Texans fans in the stands, at least for that one, wearing Watt and Hopkins jerseys, rooting against their own team, potentially, just because of how much of a train wreck it's been.
It'll be a true home game, Blake, is what you're saying. All right, we'll take it. Venerable, Deshaun Watson, does he ever play in Houston again?
I don't think he plays in Houston. I think he does play in the NFL, supposedly, and I'm not speculating. This is just what I read on Twitter, that he's trying to settle with all of his accusers. So I don't think he plays this year. I think he gets dealt. Philadelphia supposedly is one of the teams that could be interested. I of course, think this is a win. This is going to be similar to the Jets game last year where the Cardinals had lost a couple in a row early in the season, had taken it on the teeth after a strong start, then went to the Jets, who eventually we thought were going to get the first overall pick, didn't end up doing that. I feel very confident this Houston team, they just don't have enough talent to compete every week. I think there's a potential that they could go winless next year. And I do think, I'll go on the record as saying that this is going to be a game where they try to get DeAndre Hopkins like 15 targets. I could see him having over 200 yards, multiple touchdowns, just trying to really rub it in. And who makes it clear to Cliff Kingsbury before the game, like, I'm going to dominate this game. I was trying to think the other day, something was posed on Twitter about who's the second best player on the Texans after Larry Tunsil. Is it David Johnson? They lost Will Fuller. Obviously, Hopkins isn't there. They have no offensive lineman to speak of. Their defense, they've missed on a slew of draft picks. So it is really
who's their kicker? That might be it. Who's their kicker and their punter? That's what I want to look at.
It's an expansion level roster. That's how bad it is. So I think there's a real possibility that they could go winless next year.
Ooh. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, I think in this one, like you said, you got JJ and Hop. They're going to have something to prove in this one. They probably get their well-deserved revenge here, and they light it up. I mean, this one's going to be ugly. At the time, we might even see a little fourth quarter backup QB, I'm thinking, on our side. So definitely Cardinals big in this one at home.
I'll say this, from a betting standpoint, I don't know what the money line is going to be for the Texans to win, but that might be worth throwing some money on just because the bid is going to be pretty good.
That makes a lot of sense. Interesting. Just in case something happens, things go wrong, that'd be interesting.
At some point this season also, and this will be coming down the pike since we're alluding to it so much, we will have an Arizona card let me take that back. We'll have a BirdGang travel sports book show and be talking about all the games of the week as well as the Arizona Cardinals. And some of our guests here tonight will definitely be joining us throughout the season for that. So now as we move on to week 8, this one is the first of 3 primetime games. Oh, wait, Alex just got to me with his pick against Houston. He was also a W. So that is across the board, all W's in week 7.
Good.
So in week 8 against the Packers, this will be the first national spotlight game for the Cardinals this year. Thursday night football, short week coming off that Houston game, hopefully with momentum as you take on the Packers again at Sun Devil Stadium. Wow. At State Farm Stadium and here at home. So with that, the Packers probably without Aaron Rodgers, John, what do you think?
It's going to be Packers with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think he's going anywhere. That's my prediction. I think he's just trying to rattle cages a little bit. He's doing his thing, and I think the Packers fans need to relax. With it being a short week, you almost always want to favor the home team on those short weeks, but I think it's hard to pick against the Packers. I think Aaron's going to be there from week one. I think he's going to kind of carry that team the way he has year over year into the playoffs, and I'm going to take the Packers on the short week in Arizona.
All right, Johnny Venerable.
Yeah, I'll echo those sentiments from John. I think the Packers get this W, even though the Cardinals historically played Aaron Rodgers well, especially at State Farm Stadium. I think I saw a stat the other day. LaFleur, as a head coach, has lost something like 6 games in 2 years, regular season games. So while they've been disappointing in the postseason, they've dominated the regular season. Aaron, if he's there, he's completely bought into the system. I actually think they've improved their roster compared to last offseason. And so while they may not be the high-end team that they were and make it to the NFC title game, this is a game, unfortunately, where historically the Cardinals can be embarrassed on nationally televised games. I would much rather see them on Thursday night play a division game against Seattle, where they always play it close, win or lose. This, to me, unfortunately, Kingsbury versus LaFleur, Aaron Rodgers, as much as I love Kyler Murray, that's a mismatch. I could see this getting out of hand, and this could be the first sense of Cliff Kingsbury's over his head, over his skis against the NFL elite. I hope it doesn't happen, but I think Packers win regardless.
Eric, what do you think?
You come to me right
Eric,
as I take a big
sorry.
drink. But,
To you. Oh, okay.
No, I'm good. I'm good to go. I'm kind of up in the air about this one. I don't know. With the last couple games we've had here versus the Packers, you never know what to think. I mean, who knows how many Hail Marys will be thrown in this one. But, I mean, I'm hoping it's the Cards. I mean, it's hard to say. This one, I mean, just as long as it's not a tie, I'm good with that. But I'm thinking this is the Cards at home. I think it's if it was back in Green Bay, we might not be as lucky again. But definitely I got the Cards winning this one here at the State Farm.
Blake, what do you think?
Man, the biggest thing I think everyone seems to say is if Aaron Rodgers is starting, everyone sees this as a loss on 3 days rest. I think the question I have is I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate. Let's say that Rodgers, one way or the other, is like, hey, I'm coming into the season. Either one of these two things is to happen. Either y'all trade Jordan Love, like get him out of here, just make sure that was intent. Or, hey, you want to keep Jordan Love? All right, fine. But your GM, who didn't tell me about it, whatever happens, he's got to go. Like, I don't want to play for this spot. I love you as a coach. Don't want us as the GM. The question is, will the Packers fall on the sword for Rodgers or not? And that is something, at least, that right now I think that's the push game. If you tell me that Aaron Rodgers decides to say, all right, fine, you get rid of the GM or something, or I'm just not going to play. He just sits out for a couple of games, at least for the most part, just to try to prove that they need him badly. I think that's the only way the Cardinals would win this game. And if they do trade him to a team like, say, Denver for whatever reason, just something happens, they can't really repair the relationship, then you're starting Jordan Love, inexperienced. That would be, I think, something that you may argue the Cardinals might almost need one of these games to happen, because they've just struggled to be able to beat teams with winning records, some of the top competition. And these Thursday night games, let's be honest, they've not gone very well for the Cardinals at all in the past for the most part. I think the only game that I can recall that they did win in the past was the Drew Stanton, David Johnson game in 2016. Again, I remember I was going bowling that night and watching some of the game on like the television or something at least. But that's the last Thursday night football game that they've had that they did relatively well. So I've got this as a loss for the Cardinals, at least, if Rodgers is going to be on the other sideline.
Alex, what do you got with the
sorry, guys.
Cards? No, you're good.
I have a win. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like a couple things. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like a pass rush. I'm just assuming he's going to be there. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like a pass rush. The Cardinals, that's their strong suit of this team, I guess, as of now, as a group. And he doesn't like when things don't go exactly his way. So if the Cardinals can score in the first quarter and keep pace with Green Bay, anything's possible. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is, in my estimation, one of the bigger front runners in NFL over the last 10 years or so. He's obviously incredibly talented. All you have to do is get in his kitchen a couple times. He doesn't like it. Ask the Vikings. I mean, ask teams that have given him trouble over the last 5 or 7 years. So I This is going to be a defining win for the Arizona Cardinals Thursday Night Football with everybody watching.
All right. So through 8 weeks, about the midway point of the season, Alex has got the Cards at 5-3. I've got the Cardinals at 5-3. Eric's got the Cardinals at 5-3, and now all the Debbie Downers of the group. Johnny and John both have got them at 4-4, and Blake, take off your Cardinals shirt. He's 3-5 through 8.
Hey, just hold up. Got some wins that are coming at least here, so pay attention to that.
All right. Second half comeback. Here we go from Blake. Week 9 at San Fran. I'll kick it off. I already said it earlier. I think this is the game that we split with San Fran, and we end up losing this one, being that it's on the road. And at that point, I think San Fran, having all the injuries and the players coming back from injury now, get a little of that rust shaken off. And hopefully their quarterback situation is settled at that point for them. Well, not hopefully for our sake, but from them perspective, I think that's where things turn around. So I would see us taking a loss there. Eric, what do you think against San Fran on the road?
Lately we've been pretty hot, I would think, at San Fran on the road. I was just taking a look back. I wanted to see on what is that? You said, is that week? We're in week 8 in that one, right?
This is week 9. Sorry, week 9
week
on the
9.
road, November 7th.
9. So you know what? I'm going to have to go with us only because I look at right now, San Fran the week before plays in Chicago. So they're coming off a long road trip from the West Coast into Chicago and then back. Maybe they come back a little beat up. I'm giving us the win there in San Fran.
Awesome. Let's go to Blake.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is kind of when we talked about the split. I gave him a loss early, would have a win here. Might be good. Now that you mentioned looking at the schedule, maybe that's something that should be flipped because they're playing the Packers and Seahawks the week before. Now, this is also a game that the Cardinals are coming off of extra rest. So if there is going to be one of the positives for Arizona, I think coming off of that extra rest going into that game, you mentioned going up against the Bears. This is a game I think that when you're talking about flipping, I think that they are going to find some way to split. I've got this as a potential end of the game field goal kick at least to be able to get in. And I do think that this is where Trey Lance is starting at this point. Maybe some of the inexperience pops in and the Cardinals are able to bring a strong running attack at least. So I got this as a win. Wouldn't shock me if this was flipped with the Cardinals against the Niners. I do think they have a good shot at being able to split this year. If this game is a loss, then forget about Debbie Downer. I don't think I'm that quite Debbie Downer looking through the schedule at this point so far, but if that ends up happening, then just beware, at least Cardinals fans, because that would be a rough series as far as expectations. Hard for me to see that with this veteran leadership doesn't at least manage to split through the Seahawks and the Niners through this season so far.
I want to note that was a great take, Blake, but it was overshadowed by a comment from Cards fan in Florida that has officially started the Skelton beer tracker that is now going. Skelton's third beer there.
It started with a scotch too, so.
Oh, wow. All right.
I wasn't going to mention the scotch, but I noticed that to start the show, and I was just like, all right, John Scotchton, here we go. Let's get started.
Somebody's saying that's a
you guys make a career. You guys are professionals at what you do. I'm the armchair quarterback now, so.
That's a near beer, or is that a real beer? They're calling it a near beer, John. What do we got? What are we drinking?
This is a Beck's. This is straight from Germany.
Oh, there we go. Okay. And everybody keeps asking me what's in my cup. This is straight up Diet Coke. That's it, man. No more liquor for me. So
yeah, Bruce Uncle was Bruce Arians was the cool uncle everyone wanted to have a drink with. John's the cool quarterback everyone wants to have a beverage with. John, what do you think about Niners on the road?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback off what Blake said. It's hard to beat a team twice. It's hard to beat a division team twice. I had them I had them beating San Francisco in home. I think going on the road to San Francisco, they're going to lose this. I think Trey Lance is going to be the quarterback. I remember when I was playing, our goal was always to win all division home games and split all or go 50-50 on road games in the division. And this son and the Rams I have as losses.
Alex, what do you think?
I think it's a loss. Cliff Kingsbury, since he's been a head coach, has not won a game after a Thursday night game, nor after a bye. So fool me 4 times, shame on me. Going back to that, Kyle Shanahan's due for less than a 10-loss season. I guess. I don't know why he gets so much credit after having 3 out of 4 head coaching years end up with double-digit losses. But as Blake said, this could be Trey Lance, and what we saw from Jalen Hurts almost pull off a win in a random game late last year. I think it was week 15. It's kind of that thing where you don't have a lot of tape on somebody besides college tape, and let alone there's 14 games of college tape on Trey Lance. So it could be that element of surprise with Kyle Shanahan under his flat brim hat, offensive mastermind. I do think it's a loss for the Cardinals.
Going to Mr. Venerable, what do you got?
I think they pull this one off. I had them losing earlier in the season at home. I think, to echo everybody's sentiment, it's hard to beat a team twice. And San Francisco has swept the Cardinals one time. Goodness, I think in the last maybe half decade plus. Kyle Shanahan has only beaten the Cardinals during his era and tenure as 49er head coach one time at San Francisco. And that was the year they went to the Super Bowl and swept them during Kyler Murray's rookie season. They, of course, lost last year, and I think he got swept by Steve Wilkes in 2018 and lost in every instance against Bruce Arians-led Cardinals. So I think they win this game. Hopefully you're getting to the point where their roster, while it's top-heavy, can get relatively thin if guys start to go down to injury. I do think, Alex, to your point, rookie quarterbacks have historically given Vance Joseph's defense a problem. But I will say that they've just made it such a priority to add key veterans, Malcolm Butler, J.J. Watt, key positions. It's the second year for Isaiah Simmons. I mean, there really just aren't excuses for them to be had, especially when you consider San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan likes to manipulate young players. Really, at that point, from what we're hearing, Xavier Collins is going to be starting now. This is his 9th game as a professional NFL player. There shouldn't be excuses, and there should be enough opportunities for them to take advantage of a Niner team that I think it's a transition year for them. And they've got 5 primetime games, 3 on Sunday Night Football. That's pretty gross when you think about the fact that could be Jimmy Garoppolo or a kid that hasn't played football in 2 years. And then you've got Kyler Murray, peak year 3. You should be thinking about the postseason. So I had them starting 0-2 in the division. They certainly can't afford to fall to 0-3. So I think they get back on track after the Packer loss, 10 days to prepare, and Kingsbury bucks that trend and secures a victory week 9 against San Francisco.
All right, moving on to week 10 against Carolina at home. Okay, this is my take. If I already have us going on back-to-back losses the 2 weeks before with the Packers and the Niners. If we lose 3 in a row here into being a very, I think, is poor Carolina team, which we shouldn't have lost to last year, this is where Kingsbury at this point's got to go. If we lose 3 in a row here, but I'm going to say we win that one. We should definitely win that one if all things happen how they should. So, Alex, what do you got with Carolina at home?
I have this as a loss. This is one where it's like, what are you talking about? So if the Cardinals didn't lose this game, they would have made the playoffs. If they didn't lose that game, they would have made the playoffs. Yeah. Christian McCaffrey's really good. He's a really good football player. He wasn't there last year. Obviously, neither was Budda Baker. Chris Bancho got exposed last year. That was kind of the calling card for the loss in Carolina. Mike Davis ran roughshod. I trust Christian McCaffrey more than I trust most defensive players in the league. Matt Rule is coming into his own, and I could be completely wrong. I mean, this could be a statement win for the Cardinals, but history shows that there's 1 or 2 games that are just inexplicable losses, and this, I believe, will be one of them. Even though they've lost Curtis Samuel, Sam Darnold has never played in front of a good offensive line. And John, I mean, you could speak to it better than any of us. I mean, obviously, that's the number one. It's a focal point of any team. I mean, good offenses could supersede bad defenses. We see it. I mean, especially in this day and age of football. But yeah, unfortunately, this is a loss against Carolina at home.
Eric, you noted it there on the screen. Hassan Reddick, his own return game to State Farm Stadium. What do you feel about Carolina here at home with the Cardinals?
Yeah, I'm kind of going along the same lines. I think this is definitely a loss for us here at home. It's going to maybe surprise some people, but I think this might show us who we should have kept at linebacker. And we'll see what happens with this one. But I think it won't be by much, but I think we lose by less than a touchdown in this one.
There are 2 games I'm looking at this schedule: Carolina and Houston, both at home. And if we lose either of those, it just would blow my mind. I mean, it'd be typical, but I would hope we could finally win those games. Mr. Venerable, what do you got?
I think I'm with the fellas here. I think this is a loss.
Oh my God!
Again, this is not a game Bruce Arians would lose. This is a game Cliff Kingsbury loses. This is the national narrative coming into this game will be that Carolina got the better college coach, which is true. And I think this is a point in the season where we start to talk about who are the candidates that the Cardinals should be looking at this offseason as the next head coach of this team. Because unfortunately, I think Carolina has just enough offensive firepower. I actually like a lot of their personnel. And if Sam Darnold can just manage the game, not turn the ball over, I think this could look eerily similar to the Dolphin game last year, where you're just trading scores back and forth. Whomever has the ball last, that's who wins the game. I think it could look, if Kyler has an off night and Carolina essentially punted last year and said, we're not going to play defense outside of the Cardinal game. They put all their chips into their personnel basket defensively last year. Those players now have a year 2 in the system. They've added a player like Reddick who's going to be motivated. The Cardinals could have brought him back with the amount of cap space they had. They didn't. I love Marcus Golden, but Reddick was phenomenal last year. So I do think this is a game they could potentially lose. I'll pick them losing it at last-minute field goal. That would not surprise me, allowing a Carolina team that's going to hang around all season, that's going to be competitive. They're going to have flashes of brilliance because, again, I like a lot of the skill players that they have. They've upgraded their offensive line a little bit for Sam Bradford. This is going to be, in my opinion, and I hate to say this, that the second half of the season downturn that we've seen from Cliff Kingsbury each of the last 2 seasons. And again, that narrative that Matt Rule was the better college coach to be had.
Blake, you promised me W's. Let's turn it around right here. What do you think? Carolina at home.
I do have this as a W for the Cardinals, unlike some of the other people here. Yeah, I know. Finally, we get one at least for that one. I mean, when you're looking at the Panthers, they're still not quite there as a team. And if you look back at some of the other questions about Matt Rule, while it wasn't there against Cliff Kingsbury, the questions I think are all around Sam Darnold. You're like, hey, all Darnold has to do is manage the game and not turn the ball over. Well, if Sam Darnold could do that, he would still be in New York right now. I don't think that this is a game that the Panthers win. And part of that, I think also you look at with talking about with college coaches and some of the other cases. While I do like Joe Brady as a coordinator, Teddy Bridgewater went on to Patrick Peterson's podcast and talked some about some of the coaching staff that was there. He said, yeah, we really didn't spend a whole lot of time going over red zone offense or 2-minute drills. And everyone's like what? We spent a whole day going over that. And he talked at least about where the coaching situation right now, like that's almost a John Gruden type full control scenario for Matt Rule. I think for me, what it comes down to is last year, Teddy and the Panthers didn't turn the ball over, got off to a hot start. Arizona couldn't keep up. That was a game that they played without Budda Baker as well. So if the Cardinals are healthy in this situation, I think you take a look at the roster and say, is a rookie corner in J.C. Horn really going to be able to stop the likes of a DeAndre Hopkins, knowing that the Cardinals' protection is better? They're probably not going to be missing one of their best playmakers, and they're going to have Watt on the other side against what looks to be a, Greg Little, Taylor Moton. Like, I just don't feel confident about this being one of those places because the Cardinals are at home. They went on the road against a Panthers team that didn't make mistakes. I think this is one of those games where Sam Darnold gets beat up to the point where people are just like, yeah, like, you traded a second for that guy. You should have seen some of that coming. I've got the Cardinals winning this game at home.
Nice. Let's go to who am I missing? Skelton.
Yeah, I'm going to pick a little bit of what each of you said there. I think this is going to be an ugly football game. I think it's going to be 2 sub-500 football teams going at it. I think Darnold's going to have a terrible game. He had a terrible team to play with in New York with the Jets. I don't think he has much better of a team now that he's in Carolina. I think the coaching falls off. I heard the same podcast you did, Blake. I think that jump from college coaching to pro coaching is a big difference. I think the better college coach is Matt Rule over Cliff Kingsbury. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be ugly football. It's going to be like a 13-6 with 8 turnovers and just ugly football overall. And at the end of the day, I think the Panthers are going to win that one.
Oy. All right, Blake, we'll ride together on that one. Week 11, this is at Seattle. I'll kick it off. That is a loss for me. Just, again, going on the road. We have a tough time on the road. I don't trust Cliff. I sure don't trust him at home. I don't trust him on the road. I definitely don't like him on the road, and I don't like him against Seattle. I know Seattle's had some issues. Obviously, Russell Wilson earlier in the year asking for a trade and all of that stuff. But I don't see Seattle not getting the better of us in Seattle, especially with the return of what you would think, as long as the stadiums have full fans, the return of the 12th man or 12th fan in Seattle. So, Alex, what do you think about Cardinals at Seattle, Week 11, November 21st?
Win. They always play well in Seattle.
Oh.
They always play well in Seattle. They lost by 7 last year, but I think they right. But last year, like the Cardinals are at the point now where they play everybody tough except for the Rams. You know, I mean, we've seen Seattle go back and forth, 49ers go back and forth, especially with this roster. Like that offensive line gets worse every year in Seattle. It gets worse every year, and the pass rush got better. I know that DK Metcalf is a problem, and I know that Tyler Lockett's a problem, and I know that their bevy of running backs are problems. Their defense is fine. We'll see if Carlos Dunlap can repeat, if Jamal Adams can be Jamal Adams, and if Bobby Wagner has that fountain of youth still, you know, in his bag. But, I mean, it was an ugly game last year, ended up 28-21 loss, but I think the Cardinals get a W. It's going to be a weird 2-game flip with Carolina and the Seahawks.
Skelton, you played many games against the Seahawks. What do you think?
Yeah, I got a little wide-eyed when Alex, you said we always play good in Seattle, because when I was it was never good in Seattle.
Yeah, he just walked off of the stage. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm out, guys.
I need another beer after that one. But I think this is going to be a knockout, drag-out fight again. I think even a puppy dog fights when it's back against the wall. I got the Cardinals with a losing record. They're going up to Seattle. I think a lot of the guys in the locker room are going to start to think that the season's going the wrong way. I think that veteran leadership is going to pick them up. I think they're going to go to Seattle. I think they're going to show really well. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to lose. It's going to be one of those mental, moral victories for the Cardinals. But I think Seattle's going to pull it out. And to go back to the Aaron Rodgers, you know, all this drama going on with Russell up there, I think at the end of the day, he's going to be a Seattle I was going to say Seattle Seahawk or Seattle Supersonic, a Seattle Seahawk, and I think they're going to have a good season again this year in Seattle.
Johnny Venerable.
Yeah, I don't like them to win this game either. I think that this right before bye, they're going to try to unload everything they can. I do think the pass rush for the Cardinals is going to present a lot of problems to some teams, and they've always seemed to have Russell Wilson's number in terms of sacking him. But I just think, to Alex's point, I think there are just too many weapons with this Seattle offensive skilled group. I think that last year they really should have lost that first game. They were fortunate to win that game on Sunday Night Football. The second game, while the score was close, I didn't think it was as competitive. The Cardinals were playing from behind that whole game. To me, Pete Carroll versus Cliff Kingsbury, I mean, it's the same problem we go into every divisional game. And Kyle Shanahan's not perfect, but he's a superior coach to Cliff Kingsbury. You go into 6 instances next year, minimum, all in your division with a coaching disadvantage as the guy running the show on the sideline. And we're talking about this football team in November. They're going to have players in IR. I mean, they're not going to be fully healthy. You're going to need your head coach to help win you games. I'm very skeptical at this point. We haven't seen it yet from Cliff Kingsbury that they can take advantage and beat good quality teams over the second half of the season. November and December football has not been kind to this team really since Bruce Arians has left. And you're talking about what's the mentality of this team. Is J.J. Watt hurt? Is Kyler Murray banged up? Have they found a secondary receiving option? What does the offensive line look like? And then you're going to turn to your head coach and say, go up to Seattle and face the 12th man this year, which you didn't have to do last year, and beat Pete Carroll, a future Hall of Famer, and beat Russell Wilson, a future Hall of Famer. I have to see it happen, and right now I'm skeptical that it's going to happen with this coaching staff, so I'll say loss.
All right, Blake, what do you got?
Yeah. I got to win in this one, too. The Seahawks are coming off of what's going to be a slobber knocker against the Packers the week before. Then they're coming back home to play the Cardinals. I think this is one of those games where sometimes when the Cardinals would go up to Seattle, it would feel like they would just catch the Seahawks with their pants down under the Arians era. I know that, John, you didn't have as many back over in the day, and some of that culminated, I think, at least with, Russell Wilson coming into the division. I just think that the Seahawks are one of those teams that, when you look at last year, they got into the playoffs, I think, particularly because the Niners were not healthy, and down the stretch, the Cardinals' offense was just more either whether it was figured out, whether it was a running identity that then struggled to run the ball. I think this is one of those games that I have as a win, and this is kind of the highlight of their season right now for me, at least. I've got them after the Green Bay game going 3-0 before the bye week, a little bit of an uptick in their schedule. But then again, when it comes to it, it's like, look at the last few years, it's for whatever reason, they seem to play hard in Seattle. They seem to come out with wins more often than not. Usually once you're making a bet, it's like one of those weird flips of it's really hard to bet against the Cardinals on the road, and it's really hard to bet on the Cardinals at home. John and I, we in our predictions flipped it last year where we thought the Cardinals would finally get a home win. It did turn out that way and then turned into a loss, of course, in their second game of the season on the road.
That's Blake with 3 wins in a row, fellas. Just throwing that out there. He's on a 3-game
I told you the wins were coming, at least for that one. I'm not a total negative, Nancy. I don't have this as a 2-13 team, guys, or 2-15 now.
Yeah, I'll take it. Eric, what do you got? Win or loss?
I'm going way out on a limb, and I haven't been drinking, but I think it's been 2012 since we swept the season series with Seattle. I think we win both of them. We win up there and we win at home.
Whoa! 2012. You're forgetting some game. You're forgetting a very big game in 2012.
Well, that was 58-0 game. So was it 2009? It's
been a little while, at least for some of those. I remember that, John, that you won the first game against Russell Wilson. I remember with that shoestring tackle.
Well, write it down, mark it down, bet on it, do everything you want. 2 wins versus Seattle, 2021.
Ooh. All right. Bold.
Wow, that's a hot take. Okay, week 12, that's Thanksgiving week, and the Cardinals will get to spend it at home with their families. They are on a bye, so we will not have a game the week of Thanksgiving. We come back Sunday, December 5th, week 13 on the road with the Justin Fields-led Chicago Bears. No way Andy Dalton makes it to week 13, fellas. I call that now, and I also think the Cardinals will take advantage off the bye. I hate this. Good teams come off the bye and they win their games. We usually come off the bye and are very sluggish. So I am going to hope we turn it around and say we get a win in Chicago. So I will take a W there as the fan optimist of the panel. John, rookie quarterback again. Here we go.
Yeah, you said Dalton's not going to make it that deep into the season. I don't know. Dalton, I think he's one of those sleeper quarterbacks where you don't know what you got till he's gone. I played with him in Cincinnati. He's a great guy. He's a great leader. I know everyone's going to be chomping at the bit for Fields to be out there. But in a situation like this, I think they're going to let him learn. They're going to take their time before they throw him into the fire. And I think Andy Dalton's going to be driving into week 12.
John, this is people do not wait for their quarterbacks anymore. Those days are dead. There's no way he's not starting by week 13.
I get it. I think in one way or another, it's going to be Andy Dalton against the Cardinals, and in this case, I'm going to take the Bears because I just think Cardinals going up there. Wow. It's in December. It's probably going to be some bad weather. It's going to be one of those games where whoever makes the less mistakes is going to be the winner.
John, you are a good brother for sure. You are just rooting on your boy, and I'll give you that. Alex, what do you think?
Texas guy too. I got to ride with my Texas guy.
No, I mean, I agree. Like at least Andy Dalton. Like at least if there's a couple of things in play here. One, they paid him $10 million guaranteed, so he's going to be the best paid backup we've ever seen. If they throw Justin Fields out right away, I don't think that they thought they could snag Justin Fields for what they gave up during the draft. So. Going into the game, going into week 13, we're going to find out probably a couple of weeks before what the plate looks like for Chicago. Because if Chicago starts 3-4, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace their jobs are already hot. So they have to throw the kid in to see what he's got. And that either could benefit the Cardinals, or you could see a guy like Justin Fields, who's only shown that he's a winner, and he was a bad defensive performance away against Clemson 2 years ago from making the college football championship. You could see that as him as a starter, but I agree with Skelton. Andy Dalton, when he retires, Ryan Fitzpatrick may be flashier, but Andy Dalton got to the playoffs how many years in a row in Cincinnati? 10 games, 10 games, 10 games, 9 games, 10 games. And if he didn't break his thumb that 1 year, or if Vontaze Burfict didn't take off Antonio Brown's head, they would have won a playoff game. Like, we kind of lose focus. And what the Cardinals saw last year was a quarterback who was behind a second-string offensive line in his second week playing in a new playbook in Dallas. Like, that was a perfect storm for the Cardinals. Andy Dalton should be getting a lot more credit than he has throughout the course of his career, but he doesn't have a ceiling like you want a franchise quarterback to have. Both can be true. I don't know if Andy Dalton's going to be starting in week 13. I will consider this a loss for the Cardinals because until they win after a bye or after a Thursday, I'm going to pick for them to lose. This isn't roulette, or just because there's 9 reds have come up, the gambler's fallacy kicks in, and the next one's going to be black. So I say this will be a loss at Soldier Field, and it could be cold. It's December. So,
Eric from Chicago, what do you think?
Well, all I know is I'm going to eat good when we're there. So regardless of what happens, but I think it might be one of those. I used to watch. I watch a lot of football outside the Cardinals too. So I think we might fall trap to one of these NFC North battles. If you ever watched the Packers-Bears games, this might be just an ugly, windy, chilly kind of field goal fest of a game. So, the hype is going to be there on the quarterback and who's playing. Is it going to be Justin Fields? Is it going to be Andy Dalton? I think this game comes down to kickers right here. This is just going to be 12-6 or something, but I don't have us winning in Chicago, especially in December. If this game flipped the script and put us there in September, possibility of a win come out of there, but this is going to be this is my ugly game of the season for me here. But all I know is I'm going for the White Castle, the beefs, and the deep dish, and I'm saving my calories for that trip.
There you go. Venerable, what do we got?
It's funny that pre-draft, before Justin Fields kind of made everything okay in Chicago, a lot of people assumed this team would have a top 5 to 3 pick next year. Their roster has gotten worse, and they were a middling team last year. They just outright released Kyle Fuller. I think their offensive personnel is outside of Allen Robinson is average at best. They released their left tackle. They're going to play Tevin Jenkins, who I like, but as a second-round pick, starting at left tackle from day one, I don't think that, in my opinion, tackles don't come into this league and produce at a high level year one. Their defense has regressed. They lost their coordinator. He retired. So they're going to have a third coordinator in 4 years since Fangio left, and then Chuck Pagano retired. To me, I think that right now we're getting the rosy, glossy sunglasses of Justin Fields' arrival, and we're all excited about that. But don't mistake the fact that this Bears team on paper is not great. They're going to have to go out, spend big money this time next offseason to offset not having a first-round pick. They're obviously going to take advantage of a rookie quarterback on that, team-friendly deal. But right now in 2021, this is not a great football team. I think the Cardinals actually go to Soldier Field. I think this is an ugly win, something to the effect of 20-14. But I think they've got the better quarterback in this instance. I think Matt Nagy's okay, but I just think that their roster is so pedestrian, if not worse. I mean, I like Justin Fields, but he fell in the draft for a reason. The NFL media was higher on him than clearly the NFL insiders were. He was the third, fourth quarterback taken in a quarterback-heavy draft. And while that doesn't mean he can't have success long-term, he's not going to fix all these ailments that are already plaguing this team that a lot of people thought would take a huge step back this season. So I think the Cardinals are more talented at nearly every position, roster comparison. So I think they win and they get back on the right track. And I think this brings me right around 500 at this point.
I think there's still one guy on that Bears roster you got to fear, right? And that's known as Khalil Mack. So we haven't seen the likes of what Kyler Murray can outrun him yet. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, you are at 6-6, Johnny. So you are right at 500. Blake, against the Bears, what do we got?
Yeah, I'll keep this brief, but you look at what you talked about the December game at Soldier Field. That usually means it comes down to the run game as well as being able to, have an open receiver for passing the football. Cardinals last year were a top 8 rushing team, and they added a Pro Bowl center to that. Bears are trotting out a starting left tackle who's a rookie. And while I love Tevin Jenkins' mentality, I actually think that they may have, if you're going to be talking about running the ball, you look at one end, if it's Kyler Murray against Andy Dalton, and it's about who's going to run the ball more effectively, you got to give the edge to Arizona. So even though I think that Dalton's still going to be more of an NFL veteran as a passer than Fields at this point, and like you said, Fields is seen maybe as a bit of more of a wild card by a lot of people in the NFL. I think that if he comes in and is able to run the football, whether it's the read option or things like that, but then you're talking about a Cardinals defense that, it's Hopkins up against too. You mentioned they cut Kyle Fuller. I think that this is a game the Cardinals could win if it turns into a slugfest on the ground, just because of the experience that you're going to have. And even if Justin Fields does come in, you're going to have to be then, pushing as far as for some of that level of experience. So I could see this being a spot at least, but, if it is going to be more of those snowy or cold days in Chicago, I'll give at least a bit of an edge to the Cardinals in this game, even though the fact it is going to be, on the road for them. So I got them as a win.
All right. So to recap,
successful Ohio State quarterback. Who was the last successful NFL quarterback from Ohio State?
Hey, I don't know if it's good successful. He may run the ball, like 16 times for 105 yards at least for that one, but that would be one of those things. If it's going to run the ball, at least, Kyler Murray last year, I was going to say at least you could look at some of the successful Oklahoma quarterbacks for that at least. So we'll end up seeing it's one of those weird aspects at least. And he was a Georgia quarterback before he was an Ohio State guy too.
Yeah.
So through 12 weeks, we got Blake, Eric, and myself at 7-5, Alex and Mr. Venerable at 6-6, and Johnny Skelton at 4-8. There will be a lot of people looking for new jobs if they're at 4-8. Going into week 14, we are now at home versus the Rams. Monday Night Football. This is game 2 in prime time. So let's start with, let's go back to you, Blake.
Yeah, this is one of the toughest games to pick because this is home, the Rams, the spotlight game. Kyler Murray loves the spotlight. I think the question I have right now is Matthew Stafford with his back and the other issues healthy enough to play for the Cardinals at this point? He's missed the ending of quite a few of their seasons in Detroit. I do think he's going to be in a better situation, at least with McVay. So this is one of those games that I think is going to be a loss, but I have this as like a close loss, an overtime type of thing, one of those things where maybe it comes down to a made or a missed kick. This is one of the tougher ones for me to be able to predict specifically because I do think the Cardinals have a decent shot at this game. It just ends up being one of those Monday night games where I do think that they fall, especially just because of how much the Rams gave up. It's going to be hard for me to be able to see them in one of these games because the Cardinals, essentially with Cliff Kingsbury, they have to prove that they can win these type of games. So far, the only, I believe, primetime game that they've won in this fashion was, kind of a fluky-ish type of crazy win against the Seahawks in primetime last year. So I've got this one at least as a loss for now.
I'm going to go win on this just because I'm going to go splits with them and the Niners. So I took them to lose on the road against the Rams. I'm going to take a win here. And simply because at this point in the season, if the Cardinals are going to make the playoffs, this is really where it needs to start after that, with that Chicago game and moving forward. Because you got Chicago, you got the Rams, then you're at Detroit, you've got Indy, who's another really good team coming here. Then you got Dallas, who should be at full strength, and then ending with Seattle. So you need to get some wins in this little stretch of 5-6 games here. And I think when I look at the schedule, this is one of the ones they're going to need to find that split and find that win. So, again, I can see them losing, but I don't want to give us that caveat. Alex, go ahead. Oop. Alex, you there? You freeze on me. Or are you on mute?
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me?
There you are. There you are. There we go.
Mic issue. It's a loss until I see other ones. I mean, and this isn't holding on to the past. The past is now. Like, nothing's changed. The head coach is the same. The defensive coordinator is the same. They've bolstered their defense, but the Rams offense, Cam Akers is going to have a breakout year this year. Like, this offense with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford is going to have to do so much less with this offense than he's had to do in Detroit. And Matthew Stafford, like, he's such a polarizing guy because he has one of the better fourth quarter comeback records. He has a whole bunch of weird records. They don't matter because it's only really for losing teams, bad teams. Because if you're not trailing in the fourth quarter, you can't really have fourth quarter comebacks. But I just think this is going to be a perfect ecosystem for him. He's going to keep McVay's going to keep the play calling short for him, like Alex Smith and Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco. It's going to be 10 or 12 really good offensive passing plays, and they're just going to eat the NFL up. So I would say that this is a loss for the Cardinals.
Skelton, is the ship still sinking, or are we going to turn things around here versus the Rams on Monday night?
Well, I'm gonna say a lot of the things that Blake said. I think it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be one of those Murray in prime time. He's gonna show out. I think Hopkins is gonna have a really good game. At the end of the day, though, I'm gonna go opposite of what Blake said. I think the Cardinals lose. I think the Rams pull this one out. I think by this point the Rams are on their way to a playoff berth and probably competing for that bye week and the number 1 seed. Because I think a lot of things are going to be clicking for the Rams. And to piggyback what Alex said, show me. The past is the past, but you got to win in prime time. You got to win the big games. You got to win division games. I don't see the Cardinals doing it, so I'm going to take the Rams, and I think the Rams are going to have a hell of a season this year.
Wait, just for clarification, Blake, you did have them for a loss, though, right?
Yes, I said that I thought it was going to be a closer loss, though. I think some people just say, oh, this is terrible. It's
okay.
awful. Rams are going to blow them out. I think it'll be closer than people may pick.
I heard it the other way, Blake. I'm sorry.
Johnny, what do you got?
Hey, no, there's a lot of concerns. A lot of concerns, at least, that you have with the Rams team like this. It's part of why the Cardinals have not beaten them since 2016, that final game where they blew out the Rams with Jared Goff that ended Jeff Fisher's tenure.
Johnny, venerable to you.
Yeah, I'm with John and Alex. I have to see it first. I want to believe. It's like, come on, guys, you can do it. But watching that performance against John Wolford last year in Week 17, I mean, they didn't score a touchdown, and they still lost, that being the Rams. They kicked field goals. They had the pick six. They didn't score an offensive touchdown. It didn't matter. And I know Kyler Murray missed a large chunk of that game, but the Cardinals had a better roster top to bottom and still were humiliated on national TV. So, again, I like the way that they match up now. You've got Rodney Hudson to offset a little bit of Aaron Donald. You're never going to be able to clear him out, 100%, but they can at least mitigate that. I like what J.J. Watt brings from an interior 5 technique presence that they haven't had since Calais Campbell. These are the games where you always get embarrassed on the line of scrimmage. And so I'm with Blake. I think it'll be competitive. But again, nationally televised, the Rams can do ugly on national TV. They beat Tampa. When Tampa was at their low point last year, the Rams played them on Monday night, or Monday or Sunday. I think it was Monday in Tampa, and Goff played an average game. They still won because McVay is a winner, and he knows how to put together enough of a game plan. I think his statistics at halftime, leading at halftime, he's never lost a game. I mean, that's absurd. And so until the Cardinals are able to overcome this hump, I don't care where they're playing at. Something funny has to happen for them to be able to get over this hump and get the monkey off their back. They're going to have it could be a Rondell Moore kick return. It could be, a couple of pick sixes. It's not going to be a conventional game where they just eke it out at the end. They have to be able to, some magic has to happen, because right now, like this narrative that we know that they can't beat the Rams and Sean McVay, this is catching on from a Nationals perspective. Monday Night Football is going to be flashing all those graphics about, the win differential, the point differential, every time McVay's just smoked the Cardinals, and it's going to become all-encompassing. So what's going to have happen for them to overcome that? I mean, especially to John's point, I think they're going to be contending for that number 1 seed as well. I think this is when you're really going to see the best of Matthew Stafford, the second half of the season under McVay, having grasped that offense. So I can't pick them to win.
All right. Eric, last one here on the Rams. Win or loss?
I'm going win on this game. I think the Monday night curse was broken last year by us in Dallas. So I think this is another primetime win for us. They've been far and few in between. I've hated going to primetime games with the Cardinals. You get all the stage and everybody and all the national media out there on the lawn, and then usually you go in and we shit the bed and it's a crappy game, and I go home pissed off and wake up Tuesday kind of really angry, or vice versa if it's a Thursday night game. But I think we get this one. I think we squeak out, some kind of magic happens, and we pull out, and Kyler Murray looks awesome again on Monday night.
All right. At Detroit, week 15. Eric, I'm going to go back to you on that one. Give me another W.
Motown. Yeah, I think. I mean, we don't know if we're going to get the BirdGang out there for this one. We've done Detroit in the past with a small trip. Tyler, I know you made that one out there. I didn't go on that one, so we're going to see if some fans want to go. That is a little later in the year, so it'll probably be nice and chilly there in Detroit. But I think this is a win. I don't know. Detroit, that late in the year, they have nothing to play for usually. Haven't made the playoffs in forever. And I think it's another win. So I think we stack coming off that Monday nighter. I can give you the rest of my wins. I think we roll straight out. I already told you Seattle in week 18.
Hold on.
Just win me out the rest of the way. Yes, I'm jumping the gun. I'm saying Detroit to win. Christmas at home. Merry Christmas. There's another win. Cardinals make the playoffs week 18, week 17 in Dallas. Yes, we run over Dallas again. Seattle, we're in. We're in the wild card.
Nice. You can log off now, Eric. I think we're good. We got everything we needed from
I gotta go to the bathroom. It's rough having one kidney and trying to sit here for so long. So I just wanted to get all my wins in. So write those down. I don't even know, what am I at now? What's my
I got him. Eric totaled up. All right. So I'm also going to go a W here.
What was my season total now? Where does that put me?
Oh, well, if you take 5 straight wins to end the season, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You've got 12 wins this season, which I think
there we go. All right. I'm going to the bathroom, chat amongst yourselves, and I'll be right back.
Yeah.
Make sure you get him drug tested when he's going to the bathroom. That's all I'm going to say about a 12-win season. Just make sure there's a drug test.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to take a W there also. I don't see how we don't beat Detroit in Detroit. But then again, I've been surprised before. We went there a couple seasons ago, like Eric said. I remember I talked a lot. This was coming off the NFC Championship year. We played them week 1 the following season, and everyone had high hopes for the Cardinals to go to the Super Bowl, and we got just they destroyed us. It was really bad. I talked a lot of crap on their local news station, and some of their fans called me out as I was walking back to our hotel after. They said, "Hey, aren't you the asshole that said that we would get our ass kicked?" And yep, that was me. So yeah, I'm going to take a W, and hopefully they turn it around for me. Blake, let's talk about how Eric needs drug tests. Go ahead.
Man, yeah, this is one of those places where you get to question if it's the quarterback or if it's going to be part of the staff and the scheme, because Cardinals have always played Matthew Stafford relatively well with the Lions. A few games that they split. Jared Goff has always gone off against Arizona ever since that 2016 game. So they got Penei Sewell now blocking, at least for the blind side. It's hard to see them having enough weapons to be able to go on. At least Arizona, I think, has done a good job. Lions seem like they're rebuilding. This is one of those games where I think that, I'll put it this way, if you lose to Detroit, it'll be hard for Cardinals fans to see a win the rest of the season if Goff continues to have great games against them, just because you're going into probably what's going to be the toughest stretch of the season. I'll say that this game, at least for me, is going to be a win for me as well. It's going to be kind of continuing that. Again, this is a road game. This is probably going to be closer, I think, just because of I'm not quite sure of what to make of the Goff factor for the most part of him being against and with the Lions, especially since he's got at least, a new head coaching staff, a new type of playmakers. I think this is one of those games, though, that when you're talking about kind of rebuilding teams, or at least retooling teams, that's one of those things where I think you give the edge to a Cardinals team that's trying to push for a win versus trying to push for, winning in their third season with Kyler, versus a Lions team that maybe is going in next year going, do we want a quarterback? How's Jared doing? That at least is what I think is going to be the case. So again, though, it's not going to get as positive after this win, unfortunately, for his Cardinals fans.
John, to you, and I want to note this comment on the screen from Cards Fan Florida. Does Skelton travel with the gang? I want to party with him. You're up, John.
If Cards Fan in Florida's in Tampa, I'm partying with him for sure. But I think this game against Detroit, I think it's going to be a couple 4 or 5 win teams. I don't think it's going to be great football. I feel like a broken record saying that, but I think this is about the time of the year where a lot of these Cardinals fans and the super fans like Eric start to kind of eat their words and realize that this is not a playoff team. This is not a 12-win season. They lost to a Detroit team that is, bottom of the barrel in the NFC North. And I think it's a loss for the Cardinals. I think it's an ugly loss, and I think the rest of the year is going to be a slug, and it's going to be day in, day out on local radio and local broadcasting, whether it's Kingsbury's last game.
Wow. Alex.
So win. The only thing that bothers me is Jared Goff and a tight end, because that's something that we've focused on with whether it be Tyler Higbee going nuts. What was it, last year or the year before? A year before, right? With Jared Goff. Yeah. TJ Hawkinson is one of the better young tight ends in the league. If you have a rapport with the tight end position, it's transferable, in my opinion, especially if you need some sort of security blanket that's not named DeAndre Swift. You're right. Johnny said Penny Sewell was probably the surprise draft pick of the draft. The fact that Penny Sewell dropped all the way to the Lions. I think that the Cardinals will get a win. It's going to be pretty handily, but the only bugaboo that the Cardinals defense has is against tight ends, and Jared Goff knows how to find his. But I think it'll be a win regardless.
All right, Venerable.
Yeah, I think it's a win close. I think Lions are going to surprise some people this year. It's hard to be a really bad team when you're stout up front on the offensive line. I think their defense is going to struggle because they don't have the horses, they don't have the personnel, but they've got, I think, the best pair of young bookend tackles in the NFL. And then Frank Ragnot, they just made the highest paid center in the NFL. I think they're going to try to run the football, use play action. If Goff is still healthy and competing and is still their starter by that point, why I don't know why he wouldn't be. I think this is a team that you're going to talk about as, man, they're just playing above their talent, and they're really buying into what, the kneecap biting coach is saying, whatever his name is, Man Campbell. And I think this could be a scenario in which, like, if they lose, they could get exposed from a coach like Kingsbury, who's very, personnel-wise soft and kind of thought of this as a finesse team. And again, you brought all these players, J.J. Watt and otherwise, to kind of offset that. And here you have this gravitas coach who, talks about toughness, and you're going to play smash mouth football. It's going to be, in my opinion, kind of this clashing of ideologies between he and Cliff Kingsbury. I think the Cardinals win because I think they just have more top end talent, and I think they squeak out a win in the fourth quarter. But by no means, especially if this team's just kind of middling around 500 or worse, they've got to travel East Coast again in the dead of winter to play a team with nothing to play for. I think this could be dicey. I do think they squeak it out at the end, though.
Okay, I think that's 4, 8, 12. That's everybody. Okay, so moving on to that was at Detroit. Now we are the Christmas game at home against Indy. John,
how fitting is this?
Skelton.
How fitting is this? The Christmas hero, the last time the Cardinals played on Christmas.
Great.
John Skelton. I'm saying it's great. John gets to be able to talk about this, and just pointing out at least that how fitting this is for the most part, since that was the last Christmas game the Cardinals had.
I love it, Blake.
Right,
man. I appreciate that. That was, Cowboys 2010, man. I brings back memories, man. I appreciate that.
It was awesome.
I'm a huge Colts fan, and that's because Frank Reich was our receivers coach with the Cardinals my last year. He was one of those guys. It's weird because the coaching staff of the Cardinals in 2012 had two position coaches that ended up being head coaches.
Where would they be at if they had either of those people right now running the team? Jeez.
So, Freddie Kitchens, I don't know if you want running your team. He was one of them. And Frank Reich was the other. And I think Frank has done a great job in Indianapolis. I think they got a great team out there. They got the right quarterback in that position. They play in a very weak division in the AFC South. They're probably going to run away with that division. They're going to be playoff teams. They're going to come over here on Christmas Day. I think Cardinals fans are going to be jacked, but at the end of the day, I think the Colts just have too much firepower.
That is the Cardinals' 8th loss in the row for John. Blake, to you.
Yeah, as I say, I'll have to get going soon, so I'll give the next 3 games that I have just before I take off everything. I agree with John. I think that this game at least is a loss. I think that the way I've got it set up right now, the Cardinals are at probably about 8 wins or so. I have them losing their last 3 to end the season. I think that this stretch here is perhaps the most important, because if you're talking about finishing the season where you can go 2-2 or even finish 3-1, kind of steal one at least at home against Seattle, man, then you could be talking about this being a playoff team, about 10 wins. But I think that this is one of those spots where if they're going to then looking at a brutal final schedule against the Colts, you're talking about Dallas's offense, even though that defense is very suspect, and then that Seahawks game, I think that this may be one of the questions of, can Cliff Kingsbury finish? And we saw last year they weren't able to finish. If they can, I'll say, hey, Cliff proved me wrong. They went and had a 10-win season. They hit what Cardinals fans and maybe people locally were expecting. I just think that when you're looking at how this team has gone up against some of these tough players, I think that if they drop a game to Detroit, then everyone's going to be off of the bandwagon. I think that they could have a loss versus Indy. I think that Dallas is just one of those teams that may be just too loaded this year. They may be the front runners in the NFC East with Dak Prescott coming back. We'll see how he does. But with that Seattle game, the Cardinals have never done well against Seattle at home. I do think that if you're talking about it, I would have them at 8-9 then to finish the season. And then that would be the question is, Kate, can you get more than just being an 8-8, 8-9 team with Cliff Kingsbury? And I think that's the question the Cardinals will face going into the offseason. If they have less than that, like let's say I pick one extra game that they dropped, that one I agree with John is where it's going to be talking about what's the future of the Arizona Cardinals look like at the head coaching position. Cliff's got to go out there and at least get wins. And the question then is, can the Cardinals get to 9? Does 9 get you into the playoffs? Because if it gets you in, I could see that being the case where then Arizona just continues to roll with Kingsbury heading into 2022. I don't have them hitting that 9 wins. And we'll see if this is a 9-win team that doesn't make the playoffs at least, then there's going to be still a lot of questions in Arizona. But I could see that final Seattle game being kind of the, all right, Cliff, what do you have? And I have that right now as a loss.
I'm going to take them as a win. Thanks for that, Blake. I'm going to take a win.
Awesome.
There.
Hey, take care, fellas. I'm heading out for now, at least. Take care, guys.
Yeah.
Pleasure being on with y'all. Good to talk to you guys.
Awesome. I'm going to take it as a win. The Carson Wentz, such a decline last year. Hopefully new for him, for his sake, hopefully the new scenery changes things, but I'm going to take a win there. Alex.
Yeah, it's surprising. I thought about this one back and forth a lot. Obviously, the conventional wisdom would say the defense was one of the best in the NFL last year. You have a solid coaching room. Carson Wentz, when he had a good team, was good. What was that, 2017 or 2018, whenever that was? Mm-hmm. I think this is a win for the Cardinals. There's going to be a couple statement wins this year. They're going to piss people off just enough to where Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Kemp won't get fired. It's one of those things where it's like the Herm Edwards effect, where Herm Edwards has beat Michigan State the last 2 years, both times on the road. I can't remember, but they've had these massive wins for the program, but it didn't really amount to much when the season was up. So I think this will be one of those wins. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if Carson Wentz is going to be healthy or not, but you look at the wide receiver room for the Colts. Michael Pittman Jr. took a huge step forward last year when T.Y. Hilton couldn't get off the ground. T.Y. Hilton's back. He'll probably have a bounce back year, but if Michael Pittman can do it when he has the best corner and a safety spy over the top, we'll see if he can do it again. I just think it's going to be a win for the Cardinals. A big win on Christmas at home, which will put them squarely in the hunt part of the graphic for the playoffs, but they're going to be on the outside looking in through 16 weeks.
All right, Johnny Venerable.
I think it's a W as well. I think it's, to Alex's point, a staple victory, maybe the most impressive victory year to date for Cliff Kingsbury. I just don't love this Colts team as much as other people do. I think Wentz is kind of damaged goods at this point. I think that team had a gravitas toward and gravitated toward Phillip Rivers, and you just get this polar opposite personality. If it's going to work, it's going to take time. I also don't think their offensive line is great. They lost their left tackle. They're going to try to bring in Eric Fisher along slowly. He's supposedly not going to be ready till October. I know they've got Quentin Nelson, but I'm talking about their tackles. Who's going to protect Carson Wentz's blind side? I don't love either tackle. And then defensively, they've got DeForest Buckner, who was phenomenal last year. I know San Francisco would love to probably redo that trade. but they don't have a quintessential edge presence. They drafted Kwity Paye. We'll see what he does as a rookie, but they don't have anybody that scares me off the edge. I think Kyler Murray is going to be comfortable enough in this game. And I think Kyler just loves the spotlight. And it's the opposite effect of what we've been used to with this team traditionally playing so poorly on national TV games. And I'll take the opposite effect and approach that I did to the Packer game. The Cardinals will have a distinct quarterback advantage in this game. They're at home, nationally televised. I think they win this game. I think they take advantage of a team that's maybe a little bit over their skis right now. I looked at the first, 5-6 games for this team. It's brutal. Are they going to be able to recover from a start of like 2-3 or potentially 1-4? And that you hear the outside noise of Wentz isn't the answer. And then if they play him enough, they have to surrender a first-round pick. Would they consider moving off of him and playing somebody like Jacob Eason? I don't think it's a lock that Carson Wentz finishes the year as a starter if he just replicates the same horrendous play that we saw last year. Turnovers, consistently putting his team in horrific positions. I think that could be something to look for. And look, I'm probably going to end up with egg all over my face and they're going to be a top seed in the NFC. But to me, this team has a ceiling until they get a special player at quarterback. And I just don't love a lot of their personnel.
I'm going to have you start this one off at Dallas, Week 17, January 2nd, Johnny.
I think this is a loss. I think that the Cardinals would have lost to Dallas last year had Dak Prescott played. They just have an embarrassment of riches offensively, and they can spread the Cardinals out. And as much as I like the Cardinals' front seven right now, the back end with their corners would be susceptible. Amari Cooper, Galloway, yeah. And then, of course, CeeDee Lamb, if Zeke's healthy. They've got the tight end now. And I do think they're going to be better by default. They change defensive coordinators. I think Dallas could have a really sneaky, nice season, something like 10 or 11 wins. And I think the Cardinals lose at Big D. First time Kyler will lose at this stadium.
Alex, what about you?
Yeah, I'll take the L here. It's interesting how there's never been more pressure and never been as little pressure on Dak Prescott to perform. Like he got paid. And he well deserved. If he wouldn't have had a compound fracture, maybe it wouldn't have been deserved. But they franchise tagged him. They should have extended him before that, even though it's not necessarily the right move. This is how they put themselves in the situation when they benched Tony Romo. They knew this was coming at some point, and they're reaping what they've sowed at this point. Now Dak is going to be the guy, but now the shelf life starts. The ticking clock starts for this team. Amari Cooper, are they going to have to restructure him after this year? When are they going to? I know CeeDee Lamb's 2 years away. Will Jabril Cox and Micah Parsons actually work? Did they overpay D-Law on the defensive on their defensive line? Like, is the offensive line going to be as anything close to what they were 3 years ago? Is Ezekiel Elliott going to take a backseat to Tony Pollard? Most of those questions will be answered by Week 17. It would have been nice to see them play them early where there was still more things in flux, but I still think that Dak's good enough to guide this offense to 10 wins this year, and I think one of them is going to be the Cardinals Week 17.
Skelton, what do we got?
I think Dak could either be the NFL comeback player of the year or he could be the guy that's stealing $500 million from the Cowboys. He could go either way. You just never know. The reason you franchise him is because you're not ready to give him the long money, and he got hurt, and they still give him the long money. So if there's anyone that I want to see crow, it would be Jerry Jones and the Cowboys. So in this case, I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to take the Cardinals to win on the road and beat the Cowboys.
John giving us a W. All right. We like to see it. All right. We've done it. We've gone almost 2 hours. We're supposed to go an hour, but thank you guys for hanging on with us this long. This is the final game of the season at home against Seattle. And let me just update where everybody's at. Eric finished the season 5 wins out. He's 12-5 on the year. I'm at 10-6. I took an L, against Dallas. I think to touch on that, I think Dak and the Cowboys looked red hot before he got hurt. And Dak was carrying the Cowboys and really doing some great things. So I could see us taking an L there if he's healthy. So I'm at 10-6 going into the final game of the season. Johnny is at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8-8. It looks like Alex is at 8-8, and John is at 1, 2, 3. Oh man, he's got 4 wins. So you are
I got
at
5. I got 5.
You got 5?
5.
Oh, yes, you do have 5. Yes, you do have 5 wins. Okay, sorry. So you're at 5-11. So okay, 5-11 going in. Johnny and Alex 8-8 each, and me at 10-6. So I'll kick it off. I think we lose to Seattle. Unfortunately, we finished 10-7. I do think that's enough to get us in the playoffs, and squeak in either by wild card. I don't think that's going to be enough to win the division. So we would get in via wild card there. Alex, how do we finish at 8-8 currently?
This is going to be a damn it. Why was I fooled again? Loss by Cliff Kingsbury. You have a home game against a division opponent. Division opponents, you're supposed to know better than other opponents. That's the one upside of playing the same damn teams twice a year and following their games closer than any other opponent, because obviously you want to win the division and make the playoffs. This is going to be a loss and a farewell bon voyage to Cliff Kingsbury. The thing is, though, Steve Keim ain't going anywhere. This is going to be Cliff Kingsbury is going to be removed. Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury is going to be removed. And really quick, I'm not going to take too much time, but my soapbox statement is it's better for the Cardinals to not make the playoffs this year when you look at Eric Bieniemy and Brian Daboll not taking jobs last offseason. There are 2 genius offensive minds that are pining for a chance to coach Kyler Murray and this offense. So it will be a blessing in disguise. They're going to improve, but Cliff Kingsbury will be removed. One of those two guys will supplant him, and on we go into Kyler's 4th year.
Johnny Venerable, you're at 8-8 as well. How do we finish?
It's going to be disappointing. I think they lose this game, and I think they could lose. Man, it just shows you how disheartening it is to be a fan of this team. I think like Russell Wilson could play a half, and they're already punched their ticket to the postseason, and the Cardinals lose anyway and just can't get out of their own way and end up, being able to punch their ticket just like last year, but can't replicate it. Again, I feel like I've said this like 10 times, but this is why you brought J.J. Watt into Arizona, is to be able to rally the troops and put you over the edge. But to Alex's point, like the head coach should be doing that. You shouldn't have to rely on a 33-year-old defensive end on a 2-year deal to help rally the troops. And so I will admit they are better off if they probably end up losing this game and not squeaking a postseason berth. Because again, if they make the playoffs, everybody's getting extended, Cliff included. So if they just miss the postseason, the only rationale I'm gonna disagree with you, Alex, is I don't think they can go. Look at this. We're talking about fireys and potential head coaches. I don't think they can go the unproven route again, like they did with Cliff, with somebody like Bieniemy, who's never been a head coach. I think the first call that they would have to make, if you're Michael Bidwell, and I don't know if Keim would stick around or not, you would have to get a proven commodity to be able to come in and say you have to contend and compete with these upper echelon head coaches in the NFC West.
You're trying to bring in Phil Jackson?
The name that you would have to watch, who's sitting out this year, who was disrespected, is Doug Peterson. I think Doug Peterson, to me, is the most logical choice, who has worked with high-end quarterbacks. I like what he did with Hurts last year. That was a toxic environment. To me, if the Cardinals bottom out this year and you have to go the polar opposite of Cliff Kingsbury, you have to bring in a guy who's won at the highest level. It will have to be somebody like this. You cannot go with an unknown again. You have to be able to sell your fan base that we have a guy who people have to take seriously, and Doug Peterson would be that name.
Ooh, and Keim sticks around, right? In that scenario?
Come on, of course he does.
Or they promote from within at GM, because they've done that the last 3 times.
Okay. Johnny Skelton, it doesn't matter if they win or lose this game for you. They're at 5-11 at this point. But how do you see him finishing against Seattle?
They're going to finish at 5-12. I think the Seahawks are firmly in the wild card. They're not playing for nothing. I don't think their playoff position is going to be factored into this game. They're going to probably start Russell Wilson and then putting someone else in later in the game. I think that limb that Johnny's out on is way out there right now to already predict a Doug Peterson coming in, but I respect it. And to Alex's point, I don't think Keim's going anywhere. I think they could be a 5-win team, and I don't think he's going anywhere. And that's just the relationship between the organization and Keim kind of speaking for itself. And at the end of the day, I think going into the 2022 season, there's going to be a lot of changes. I think at the head coaching position, there's going to be some changes. I'm not going to go that far out to say who it's going to be, but that OC in Kansas City, man, he's holding out for the right job and the right quarterback. And who knows? It could be Murray and it could be the Cardinals, but I'm not bold enough to make a statement like you guys.
Well, with that being said, just to recap one last time, John ends the season at 5-12. He's got me really excited to watch this team this year. Blake had him at 8-9. Johnny has him at 8-9. Alex has him at 8-9. I have him at 10-7, and Eric, the ultimate optimist, at 12-5. So, well, guys, thank you for everything. Alex, the Locked On Cardinals podcast, really quick plug when people can get a hold of that.
Yeah, it's at Locked On AZ Cards on Twitter. We do it every day. We stream live every day on Twitter at around 10:15 Pacific time, local Arizona time. So 6 months out of the year, it's Pacific. And Apple Podcast has been taking an excrement, so you can find it on the Odyssey app, Spotify, Stitcher, like that.
Nice. And now Blake and Johnny of Revenge of the Birds, thank you guys so much. Johnny, when can we get Revenge of the Birds content? Besides, obviously, every day online, but when can we get your pod?
Yeah, so I write for revengeofthebirds.com. And then, of course, the ROTV podcast that Blake and myself host comes out typically once a week. We do 2 pods during the season if we can manage. We're in a little bit of a lull season. Would love to see some Cardinal action. Maybe they secure a tight end here pretty soon. But thanks for having me on. It's been a blast, guys.
Thank you, guys. John, appreciate you as always. And thanks, everyone, for watching. Eric, send us off with, again, what our trips look like. Our trips will be out next week.
Hey, shut up.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
Can we get a plug from John Skelton? John, what are you doing in the Valley? And also fans want to know what tailgates they can come chug beers with you at.
There you go. Yeah, how about
Yeah,
that?
honestly, I just really appreciate you guys, BirdGang Travel. You guys have always been good to me. I know Tyler, good, bad, or indifferent, has always been a fan of mine. I stayed in the Valley. I bought a house about 2 miles from the Cardinals practice facility. I'm plugged in with some nonprofits. I love doing stuff like this. Alex, I think you guys do a great job. Plugging the Cardinals, good, bad, and indifferent also. Just
thanks, man.
Being the voice of the fans. So I appreciate you guys. I do plan on making an away trip this year. I was planning on it last year. That all got pushed to the side, but I'll be at the tailgates. I'll be on a
you hear it here first. Drink with John Skelton on the road. Here we go.
Yeah, and I don't pay, so
we're gonna have to up the package prices for that one because he drinks expensive scotch. So yeah, it'll be buffered in everybody's package this year. John, thanks for joining us. Great seeing you yesterday at golf. I hope you shot better than me and Tyler did, but Tyler actually played pretty good. You should have been watching him. It was actually he was killing it. Once Marte Jenkins left, Tyler was the anchor of our team, definitely holding it down for us.
Don't gas me up. I'm mean on the course now. No, thanks everyone for watching. And packages will be out again next week. Nashville, looks like Chicago. We got to talk about a couple others. There's some definite opportunity of some fun trips this year, and we will see you guys in person. I hope this is the last Zoom thing we do for a bit. So we'll do some.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been fun, and plus, you know what? We can look back at this at the end of the season. It'll be saved on video on Facebook, and we could do a recap and see how right I was and how wrong you guys were. So
yeah, there you go.
Total wins. Take the Vegas under.
Awesome. Send it off, Eric, with what to expect from a BirdGang travel trip.
BirdGang Travel does it right. How they get the fans together is phenomenal.
They make it very easy. They think of every detail. They make it as easy as can be. You meet a lot of other Cardinal fans, and it's a great time.
Some of us that can't afford it, you know, and everything else, the package is awesome. You get to meet all kinds of people that you may sit next to at the stadium, and all of a sudden you don't realize you get here and you go, oh man, you sit next to me.
1 through 10, definitely a 10.
Rise up! Let's go, BirdGang!